On this episode of Lord of the Rings, let's discuss Lord of the Rings. Talk about the best musical score, the Lord of the Rings. We become the Lord of the Rings. We are the Lord of the Rings.
There's only one
Lord
Lord of
the
the Rings, and he does not share power.
Don't give me that ring. I don't want it.
I put on my robes and wizard hat.
Ah, yes. Welcome to Half Film Takes, high contrast conversations where we zoom out to see the bigger picture. I am one half of the host, Corey Revis, aka that black guy in Lake Town. And Adam is here. You can say your
Hello.
last name because I already said your first name.
Hello, my name is Adam Bucheri, aka, and I'm going to try to do this in one take, Aragorn, aka Elisar, the Elf Stone, the champion of the West, the High King, Strider, Longshanks, Chief of the Dunedain. Oh, yeah.
Longshanks.
Longshanks. Flame of the West. There's definitely like a dozen more.
Yeah.
He's got so many honorifics, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, because he's Aragorn. Of course he is. Of course he does.
He do be Aragorn, though.
Yeah, he do
That's
be
the
Aragorn.
thing.
So, if you haven't guessed it already, we're talking about ye old Lord of the Rings.
Ye oldie, the Lord of the Rings.
And we've got apparently a lot to talk about because I'm obviously kind of interviewing Adam today about it because this is apparently his like one of his favorite things ever. So I'm like, yeah, tell me, bro.
Yeah, this is kind of a throwback to our formative episodes series where we just like we gotta get this out of our system.
Yeah.
Like there's like I'm composed of like 15% Lord of the Rings by volume as a human being, which like I want to be clear, that's a really significant percentage. It's a very high percentage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea what 50% I am. It can't be Mega Man, is it?
No. I don't know. There's not a lot of people who are that percentage of anything. So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
there's a deep well. I feel like I could go toe to toe with Colbert.
I don't
in
know.
his quizzes.
I've seen him go off, and I'm like,
I know.
bro.
But also, I could be like, hey man, what's the name of Eomer's horse?
And he would probably tell you.
It's only mentioned once in the books.
And he could still probably tell you.
I mean,
I've seen him do
bad
like, dig
respect.
deep. I've seen him dig deep in like some back behind the scenes stuff where it's just like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. Like that's a good way to start it off. For all you Lord of the Rings fans out there, you're gonna love this episode. You're gonna love it because, we're about to get crazy with all of this stuff that Adam is gonna spew out of his mouth. I don't know what I was about to say. Like mass out of Adam's mass.
I am the mouth of Bucheri, which is the emissary from the Black Lands who comes out to treaties with the Fellowship of the Ring, what remains of it, the Company of the Ring, as they approach the Black Gate.
Oh, so the guy without eyes.
Yeah, and he's got.
I knew that. I knew that.
And they use CGI to make his mouth too big, and it looks great special. Oh, he's constantly like, oh, Gandalf. He's like does like weird mouth stuff. Gandalf. Like his mouth is so.
Need a cheeseburger from you.
Oh, Greybeard. What you don't understand is that I suffer without my stone. This is too inside baseball.
Yeah,
I'm
I know.
making some dumb bits. I apologize, everyone. Corey, please tell the nice people what they're going to be listening to.
Okay, you
What
are going to
questions?
be listening to the first question. Adam, what is Lord of the Rings? Specifically, what era / part of Lord of the Rings are we actually talking about today? Because we could obviously it's huge. It's mega huge.
Yeah.
You could have an entire episode about just the language, the elf language, which I'm pretty sure it exists somewhere.
Are you referring to Quindar or Sundarian?
I have no idea. See what I'm talking about? You could have an entire
Kenya. Quenya? Fuck.
I don't know.
Fake fan.
I don't know.
I think it's Quenya and Sundarian.
Okay. Yes.
There's two.
But yeah, so
Yeah,
that-
so just defining scope, which is to say, today we're going to be talking about the books and the Peter Jackson adaptations. I'm aware that there are the Ralph Bakshi and the Rankin Bass animated films. I am aware that there is, this long history of like weirdo projects that are associated with it. There's also the Hobbit trilogy. We will not be touching that today because that's a whole other can of worms.
Thingy.
We're also not going to be talking about any of the posthumously published stuff, so we're not going to be talking about the Silmarillion.
No Rings of Power.
Meaningfully.
No Rings
We're not
of
going to be
Power.
talking about the Rings of Power. We're not going to be talking about the Children of Hurin. We're not going to be talking about none of that stuff. We're just talking about the original books. Maybe we'll talk about the book, The Hobbit, a little bit in passing. And then the Peter Jackson trilogy, which remains one of the great adaptations, period, full stop.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I do agree.
Mm-hmm.
Because it took me a while to actually watch them.
I know. I made you.
Yeah, I know. That is part of the discussion today is people out in the audience land. Yeah, that's how I was kind of introduced to this whole series as a whole. At least the live action stuff. Because I never saw them the whole way through. I saw bits and pieces of all three of them throughout my life until I got to college on, TV or something like that. And then he made me watch all of it, all the way through with the super special edition and all this kind of stuff.
Can't remember if I made you watch.
Oh
the
yeah, you
special
did.
edition ones.
Oh yeah, you
Okay.
did. I remember this. And you're like, nah, this is the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's what I keep hearing from a lot of people. And then I watched it and I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. This is pretty good.
It is still like really strong contender for like Desert Island media, where it's just like, oh, I'm only allowed to have one thing that I watch for the rest of my life. It's like, it's probably between like Hot Fuzz and The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, you do like Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz is immensely rewatchable.
Yeah.
That is a fun movie to
You
rewatch.
love that movie.
Yep. But The Lord of the Rings, we rewatch it every Christmas.
Oh,
Every
really?
year. Every year.
The whole
Yep.
thing?
The whole thing.
All the way through? Like,
Sometimes we'll mix it up a little bit. And like often it's in the background, right? We're not like sitting down and 100% paying attention to it.
oh,
We'll
you
be
just
putting
have
up
it on. Yeah.
while we're doing
It's a Christmas movie.
decorations or
Yeah,
or
it's
stuff. But
it's
like
that kind of a Christmas holiday movie. Okay, that's neat. So it's good to have on just period, just to let it rock type situation. All right.
yep.
Cool. So, yeah. Explain to the good people, the masses. I'm just going to start calling our audience the masses.
The masses. The unwashed masses.
Yeah. The blobs, the masses.
You filthy faceless
you,
cretins.
you mass of flesh and bone.
Born from the spawning pits of Autumno.
Here we go. And we're off.
Hooray!
Okay, what are you talking about? What the hell are you talking about? Tell me. What is Lord of the Rings? Why should we care? What is going on? Why are there so many words that sound weird? Why are there so many places?
Well, to answer the last question that you just asked, the reason that so many things sound weird is because, first and foremost, what you have to understand is that Jolkin Tolkien, the author, the man, the myth, the legend, first and foremost was a language weirdo.
Yeah.
And he
I do
wrote
know this.
he wrote the languages before he did anything else, and he really, really cared about them.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so many weird names and stuff. And you'll be just like, it's unbelievable that there is like 10,000 years of history and I have to hear about fucking Ancalagan the Black Dragon. And then in the same breath, you look over there and there's Mount Doom,
Yeah.
which was named by a toddler.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And it's like, no, of course not. The mountain's called Rudrun in Elvish, which, basically, it's the people of the West. It's people of Gondor who have to look over it, and they're just like, oh, check it out. It's fuck mountain over there. That's
Yeah.
gonna kill us all.
Yeah. So why should I say? So it's easier to
Yeah.
say Doom.
Yeah, it's the nickname that they gave it
Yeah.
because a cool thing, a genuinely cool thing about them is that like Tolkien cared about language, but he also cared about how language evolves and how it's used and how words will get bastardized or twisted or anglicized. And so there's just a bunch of stuff like that, which is genuinely cool to me. You'll find like these legacies and lineages of names that go through. This isn't why it's cool, but I think that this is the version of this that works the best in fiction, because I've read Aragon, a bad book series to me. It does not work. And, the author will be like, oh, I wrote 10,000 years of history and all this stuff. And it's like, first of all, not that difficult. I'm a dungeon master. I've run tabletop games. You can write 10,000 years of history real easy. It's
I could do it
not
right
that
now.
complicated.
You know me.
Absolutely.
I could do it right now in my head.
Like, it's... I don't know. It's just like part and parcel with world building for anything that's fantasy like this.
Yeah.
Like it's going to have history. I can't remember who said it, but someone observed that like virtually all fantasy is actually post-apocalyptic, and there are the ruins of older, greater civilizations that like the modern culture lives in the shadow of, which is absolutely true of the
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Oh well, I think also we're always fascinated with antiquity, so we can't help it.
Love a fallen empire.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's chock-a-block full of that. But also, in that Aragon example, like the fake words that he comes up with, the just don't sound remotely as convincing because they're not, because they don't have that lineage.
Yeah. Well, you can as much as it sucks. I feel like the author of like that series, like Aragon, is like, dude, I'm sorry. I know you probably tried your best, but you just stole. Like, it's blatant how many things you kind of just ripped off. It's not even inspired. It's just ripped. And I'm like,
see, like my objection to this line of complaint is that like the problem isn't that he lifted stuff from other things.
oh
right?
no, I'm not saying that. Yeah.
I know. But like the problem is that he lifted it from too few sources where it's like this is basically the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars mashed together. And those sources are too popular. And so it's obvious.
Yeah.
Creative people, I encourage you to just blatantly steal stuff, but steal from a lot of different sources.
Well, yeah.
Really put a lot of ingredients in that stew, and also the more obscure it is, then the safer you're gonna be.
Yeah.
As far as like someone being like, hey, wait a second, this guy's just Yoda.
Yeah. But I mean, like, well, you know what I mean, right? Like, because you kind of explained it a little, a tad different,
Sure.
but the same. Of like, yeah, he stole from two very popular things, but he didn't differentiate them. In my opinion, he didn't differentiate it enough to where it was like, okay,
Yeah.
I get where this is from, but you kind of made it your own type thing.
It's too recognizable, and it doesn't have enough of an identity. And I'm sure that there are people who will differ, and there are people who like it really hit them at the right age, and they have affection for it. And I don't want to take that away from them. But like for me, just like the fundamentals of the storytelling and how much it resonated with me personally, like
Yeah.
But we're not here to have a treatise on Aragon. We're here to have a treatise on Aragorn.
Okay, what did he do?
Like just a bunch of stuff. He slept in the dirt a lot.
I believe it. He was very dirty in the movies.
Yeah. So yeah, the real answer is like, why care about the Lord of the Rings? It's so multifaceted and so cool. There's just so many ways that you can appreciate it. The level of detail holds up to scrutiny. It's the kind of thing where if you ask like, is there more context for this? Is there like a greater, like, there is always more context for
Mhm.
it. And crucially, the context is usually pretty cool. You know, it's not like, if you're just reading the Silmarillion and it's like it's functionally a textbook, sure, you can be forgiven for thinking that it's boring. But there are a lot of neat dramatic stories. The foundation of this world building is really cool and has been aped and echoed
Mhm.
numerous times over the almost century since this came out.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then when we finally get around to talking about the film adaptation, Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings is genuinely one of the great adaptations of all time. The way that it takes the spirit of the original books and then translates it to film is so successful in the important ways. And what I'm talking about that is like capturing the spirit of the thing. It's vastly different. It's hugely different. It takes big swings. It makes a lot of changes to the source material, but those changes are all in service to the original core identity and the heart of the story.
Mhm.
And I do hope that we do a Hobbit episode at some point in the future,
Yeah.
because they do not.
Yes. We probably will, because that's the only thing I know of, like, because I actually read the book. So,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I was looking forward to. I think I told you this before. It was like, oh man, oh, they're actually making The Hobbit now. I actually know that. I know that.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
it came out, and I was like, oh no. I
Oh
think
my
they're gonna
god,
do
they adapted the first 80 pages of The Hobbit?
yeah, well, yeah, and well, that's the thing is, I'm like, wait a minute. I watched the old Ralph Bakshi stuff, and they got done with
Mhm.
it real quick. So
Yep.
why is this taking 3 movies? I thought it was gonna be done in the second one, because I was like, okay, once Smaug gets there, it's like you're
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
almost done. Like,
Yeah. We're not going to
okay,
get
we're not
into
gonna
it.
go there.
We're
Yeah, we're not
not
gonna go
going to
there.
fall down. We're not going to fall into this trap.
Yeah,
But like, there's a lot to talk about there, and it exists in conversation with the Lord of the Rings. So let's talk about Lord of the Rings so we can set up that future episode someday.
yeah. Okay, all right, okay.
Mhm.
So, okay, first real question. First real question. When did you get into this? Or were you literally reading this when you were in the womb?
That's a great question. I got into this in high school, early high school,
Oh,
which is to say when the movie came out.
okay.
I have distinct memories of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets
Okay.
and The Lord of the Rings to the Fellowship of the Ring coming out very similarly. I don't remember if they were in theaters at the same time, but like, there's a strong association between those two movies
Yeah.
in my mind. One of them is better.
One of
But
them is for a different audience.
I look, my objections are with Mr. Christopher Columbus, who I think is a pretty middle of the road director for those first
That's
two
fair. That's
movies.
fair.
But the yeah, so you know, it came out and it was like just kind of in the water, and I remember my dad being like, "Have you ever read Lord of the Rings? I think you'd like it." And
That's funny coming from your dad, actually.
I know. He correctly pegged me. And I remember checking them out from the school library, and there were those old versions that had like the weird like designed illustration of the flaming eye, but it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like really abstract, and it just like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, they were also like a weird, like kind of sickly off color, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
They weren't my favorite looking books,
Yeah.
is what I'm saying. But I tried reading them. I was too young for them, honestly. I just kind of bounced off of it. It's not that the content was too advanced, it's just I wasn't used to that slower pacing. Look, I was still like way into like my Redwall phase at the time, right?
Okay.
And those books are breezy comparatively.
Yeah.
And the Fellowship of the Ring especially is a slow burn. But yeah, I read part of the Fellowship of the Ring, and then I watched the movie, and then I went back to the books, and then I got into the books.
Okay.
And then by the time the Two Towers came out, I was like fully
In
sicko
it.
mode
Yeah.
for Lord of the Rings. And I just have like this was really one of my first rabbit holes that I fell into. I made this my entire personality. I was intolerable. I really should apologize to my parents for how annoying I was about this thing. But like to the point where I have vivid memories of like there was a Thanksgiving one year
Oh no.
and a relative gave me a gift, and it was the extended edition of the Two Towers.
Uh-oh.
And those extended editions were amazing. And also, I've talked about this before, they were like my first film class
Mhm.
where it was like those behind the scenes were detailed enough to like really get me a sense of the camaraderie and the craft that went into making film in a way that I never really had that perspective before. And so it's Thanksgiving, and I'm literally downstairs in the basement watching special features on The Lord of the Rings while my relatives are all there. People who I only see once a year.
Yeah.
And it's just like, sorry, Adam's in his Lord of the Rings hole, and he's not coming out. I took it too far. I was embarrassing, but I mean, I am expressing like the depths of my love for it.
Yeah. It's okay.
And then I've told this story as well, but like I love to tell it, so I'll tell it again.
Okay.
But when I was when Return of the King was coming out, I remember being at school on opening day for Return of the King and just being like, man, I don't want to do school. I want to be watching Lord of the Rings. It's stupid that I'm here. And then I got a message from the front desk over the PA system that's just like, Adam Bucheri, will you come to the front desk for a doctor's appointment? And I went there, and my mom is there, and I'm just like, I don't think I have a doctor's appointment. And she's just like, you don't. And then she waved some tickets for Lord of the Rings. And to this day, all-time great parenting move. Absolute maximum points to my mother that day.
Based.
Still
Straight
hugely
based.
fond of it. I think that I've got the ticket.
Oh, really? You kept
somewhere.
the ticket? Well,
I'm
that makes
pretty sure
sense,
I've got the
though. I was
ticket.
going to say, did you keep the ticket, or did you keep some type of memento for that? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
And guess what? All-time great theater experience.
Oh, that was opening day, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That probably was
Great
hype.
energy.
That probably was super
I was
hype.
losing my mind.
Anybody
incredible.
was probably losing their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And since then, I mean, I have watched The Lord of the Rings on average probably once a year.
Mhm.
I've probably missed a couple, but I've probably watched it more than once. So it evens out.
Yeah.
And then as for the books, I also deeply love the books.
Mhm.
And I've talked about this as well, where my wife, a historically bad sleeper, one of the ways that I can get her to go to sleep is I read books out loud to her. So we have reading time together, which is lovely.
That's the cutest thing I've ever heard.
It's very cute. And, right now we're reading Dracula, and we've read, a bunch of other books, but there really is kind of a sweet spot for falling asleep books where you don't want something that's like too intense or too engrossing or too whatever.
Mhm.
And The Lord of the Rings is what we keep coming back to. We have read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings out loud at least 4 times to completion.
Wow. That's impressive.
It is impressive. We wrapped up our most recent reading of it, I don't know, 3 months ago,
Okay.
probably.
Well, also, what you told me what you actually... You didn't tell us all of what you do with those readings, though.
What's the question?
No.
I'm not following on this one.
No. What do you do while you're reading the...
I mean, do you want to say that I do the voices?
Yeah,
'Cause I
you do the voices. Yeah.
You better believe I do the voices.
Yeah, he does all the voices, too.
And they're fun. They're great on the page. Like, you read Sam on the page, the accent that Sam has in the movies is the only accent that Sam can have, because that's just his rhythm and cadence, where he's always going like, "Oh, why I oughta,"
Yeah.
Begging your
I
pardon.
don't believe
sir,
you.
But it's so fun to be so many of those characters. Gandalf, consistent delight. I'm always pumped when Gandalf shows up.
Oh, I think everybody is.
Saruman, so much fun. Yeah, great books to read out loud. Love to do the character voices.
Yeah. By the way, that is my favorite line from Sam.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, because when I saw that the first time, a little fact about my Lord of the Rings experience. When I saw that one for the first time, I'm pretty sure that is Two Towers. I think that's Two Towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's my favorite one out of the three. Don't at me. When I saw that, and he was him and Frodo were basically just staring at, this scene, but I'm explaining it to the masses. Like, they're looking and listening to Gollum, and Gollum's like, "No, I'm not gonna do nothing. You can trust me." And I immediately thought in my brain, "Man, he's bullshitting." And then Sam immediately said, "I don't believe you." And I'm like, "See, this is why Sam is the GOAT. That's what I'm talking about."
Sam is the GOAT.
He's the GOAT. The GOAT.
Sam is the greatest of all time, but also Frodo is the greatest of all time.
Yeah,
Aragorn is the greatest of all time, and also pretty strong argument for Gandalf being the greatest of all time.
Well, I think you didn't say the actual for real greatest of all time though, which is Orlando Bloom's elf character. I'm pretty sure everybody thinks that he's the coolest person ever, like all the time, forever.
It is so funny how Legolas is a nothing character in the book.
Legolas is
and
straight
also
up a nothing character in the book.
In the movies.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what I've heard. Like I said, I have not read any of the Lord of the Rings books, like the actual ones, like the whole way through. The only one I read the whole way through is The Hobbit. But everybody who I've talked to says the same thing. It's like Legolas is barely, he barely does anything in the books.
Yeah, he does slightly more than in the movie, where he mostly stands in middle distance and goes like, "A storm is approaching."
Yeah, he's an elf. He's what you think an elf would do.
Exactly. Man, elves are so fucking OP and it's ridiculous.
They are.
You gotta nerf elves.
But to be fair, in terms of the lore, no duh, they're so OP. But
I know.
People, the actual people are like, the only thing they have is numbers, but basically.
Well, also their spiritual life essence isn't tied to external forces which are fading and causing the inevitable downfall of their civilization.
Yeah, true. That's also true. It's all weaves together. See? It all weaves together.
There is so much cool world building stuff that isn't even really touched on. We're not going to talk about the Rings of Power, but something that I do like is that they chose to focus on a thing that is real in the books and the films, which is the time of the elves is over and it's time for them to leave. But the Rings of Power show is just our time is over and it's time for us to leave 2,000 years before the start of the Lord of the Rings. And the only reason we're there at all during the course of the Lord of the Rings is because we have artificially extended our time of prosperity, but that has resulted in this stagnation, right? Where it's we've basically stopped the seasons, and now the leaves keep falling, but they're not decomposing. The cycle isn't going on correctly. And as a result, the elves culturally, as a society, as a people, are very similar to Bilbo, where he's I feel thin, stretched out like butter over too much bread. That is happening writ large for all of elf kind, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
For something that is almost exclusively subtext.
And that also gives you an idea, subtly, of just how old everything is. Obviously, this is a world building thing. I don't know if Tolkien did this on purpose. He probably did, because that's how good of an author he was. But he's nothing is young. Some things may look young, but everything is just at least 80. Everything.
Oh my god, yeah. Aragorn is 80
Yeah.
and elves are like, you baby.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I've been here, bro.
There is, of course, one notable exception to what you're saying, who does not appear in the films. I am, of course, talking about the one, the only, the most powerful wife guy in fiction, Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it Bombadil? Because everybody's like talking about
Tom Bombadil. It's so funny how polarizing Tom Bombadil is, because there are lots of people who just fucking hate Tom Bombadil. And I am like way into Tom Bombadil because Tom Bombadil is older than the concept of mountains. Okay?
Yeah.
And I want you to like marinate on that sentence for a moment. He is unfathomably old. He dates back to the beginning of time, maybe earlier.
Yeah.
He is unspeakably powerful. Who knows what he's actually capable of? Like, genuinely, if he wanted to do something, who could possibly stop Tom Bombadil? And the reason why they can't give the ring to Tom Bombadil, a ring whose corrosive, corrupting force destroys everyone it touches, that has a malicious will that bends towards destruction. This ring has no effect whatsoever on Tom. He has no power over him, and they can't give it to him because he wouldn't care. And that's kind of fucking awesome to me. That's like so cool, where it's just like, no, we can't give it to Tom. And it's like, why not? And it's like, he would like put it on top of a shelf and it would fall in the garbage, and then he'd throw out the garbage and he wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
And it just like...
And it would just be lost again.
Yeah. It's like, we cannot trust someone. We can't trust the forces of darkness to knock on his door and just be like, hey, do you have the One Ring? I would like it. And him being like,
yeah, you could have it.
Maybe?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you could have it. I don't need it.
I can't remember if I do or not.
Yeah.
I was too busy getting flowers for my hot river wife, who I fucking love. Can't get over... I love... God, Goldberry's so good.
Okay. I didn't know any of this, but I'm learning new things every day.
Yeah, he's just obsessed with his wife.
Yeah.
That's it. It's his whole motivation. He just
That's his
fucking
whole
loves his
motivation.
wife so much. He doesn't... Okay, this creature that's older than the concept of mountains from time immemorial, on a geologic scale, this creature is. The hobbits are rescued by him, and then he's like, by the way, you should stop by Bree. They got a pretty good bar. Like, he's just a dude?
Yeah.
He has unlimited cosmic power, and he chooses to just vibe and just be a bro. It's just like, you could not persuade Tom Bombadil to steward in to protect this ring that will determine the fate of humanity, but you could definitely get him to play beer pong with you.
Yeah. Well, I guess that might be his like fatal flaw, is apathy, because nothing can touch him. Nothing really matters to him except his wife. So as long as you're not messing with his wife, he could care less about what happens.
It's only a fatal flaw if you expect anything out of him.
Yeah.
But Tom Bombadil.
Well, that's
look,
the
the
whole
dude
thing.
abides.
Well,
that's it.
But that's the whole thing, is everybody knows this. It'd be different if nobody knew this, but everybody who's important seems to know. Oh, he's just there. He's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
they talk
everybody
about him at
knows
the
his
Council of
deal.
Elrond.
Yeah.
Like, he gets mentioned. He's known. They're just like, can we use him? Can we? And it's just like, no.
Nah,
You don't give.
yeah,
you
he
don't
doesn't
give a
care.
fuck.
Yeah, he doesn't care about any of this. It's fine. As long as
Yeah.
you don't attack his wife, everything's fine.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So anyway, so that guess kind of explains. No, it doesn't explain what the Lord of the Rings is. It just explains your relationship to the beginning of the Lord of the Rings. So that is all well and good, because we talked about the most, I guess, contentious character in Lord of the Rings lore. So, here is a very interesting question that I thought of. And there's like, I don't know if I don't want to say subtext to this, but there is a lot to this of why the hell do you like this so much? Because I, for one, when I first met you, didn't think that you would be into this as much as you are. There is a lot to this series, to these books, to this, to the lore, to the world, to everything surrounding Lord of the Rings. And that is including the fandom, that's including the author himself, that's including all of the time period that all of this was created in, just the language itself of how he even did that and why he even did that. His inspirations of all this stuff that he just stuffed in here, and somehow he made it work and made it so original that it's literally like it spawned off all these like subgenres of things. And I'm like, wow, this is really like big. And I would I make this comparison. It's like compared to something like Resident Evil, which you are also really into. But you made it very clear. I'm only in Resident Evil specific
I
Resident
like the
Evil.
ones that I like.
Yes, but the way you're talking, you're like, no, Lord of the Rings, all of it has a special place in my heart. And I'm like, okay, this is, I wanted to ask that question specifically because I'm like, okay, this was probably fascinating. Just on like, why is this one of the big things? Like you said, like 15% of your being. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot for a lot. So I'm like, okay, why? What the hell? Basically.
Yeah. I think it's really fair to ask me, the man whose philosophy is things that I like are canon and things that I don't like are not canon.
Yeah.
Which is a great philosophy. Why I engage with this in its totality in a way that I don't usually do it.
With like anything, I would say.
Yeah. And the answer is because this is one of the few things that I feel like is good in its totality. Like I genuinely really like these books. I like the prose. I like the structure. I like the story. I like the characters. I like the morals. I like the worldview. And they're so fascinating from a historical perspective. Like the context in which they were released, as you said, is so fascinating. And then Tolkien as a person is really interesting as a figure, and the way that his history shaped the books, and then his relationships with the other famous authors, the Inklings, famously.
Yeah. Because I was specifically thinking like C.S. Lewis, because the way you are about Tolkien is the way I am about Narnia. So I was like, but I know that they had like almost a rivalry of like, okay, how crazy can we actually get type situation.
It's so funny to hear stories about Tolkien and Lewis specifically, because they were clearly very good friends, but like in a relationship lived in enough that they could bust each other's balls.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Because like you'll constantly hear stories about like exchanges where it's like C.S. Lewis is reading it, he's like, not another fucking elf.
And then he's like, and
then Tolkien will be reading, a manuscript for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and he's like, you cannot just have fucking Santa Claus show up. What are you talking about?
I know about like the one thing where they have characters of each other in their own stories. I think Treebeard is C.S. Lewis.
Treebeard is supposed to be inspired by the cadence and voice and the presence of Lewis.
Yeah. And oh man, I knew this. Who was in? Oh shoot, It's gonna come to me later. It's probably gonna come as soon as we start recording. But yeah, it's the same thing. Like they had exchanges like that all the time, and they
Mhm.
also. But I think it's really interesting because they also both served in World War One, so
Yeah.
they both had those lived experiences where it's like, yeah, shit was real, and we basically kind of had to like, well, not had to, but they were both writers, like
Mhm.
prolific writers, so they both like decide to just spill it all out on the page.
Very much
And
so. And the way that they chose to turn that, a horrific world
yeah,
event,
yeah.
World War One, um, is such a kind of pointless and senseless war. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
this huge conflict that like kind of wasn't about anything in particular.
Well,
It was just stuff happening and like
yeah.
and I'm saying like World War One scholars don't at me because I understand there's a bunch of geopolitical stuff, but like for your average troop on the ground, it's much closer to, just a pointless forever war rather than World War Two, which was like this war of like great purpose and moral
Oh
clarity.
yeah, yeah. Cuz I was about to say that is there's a reason why a lot of World War One, like from what I read and stuff like that, because I was always fascinated by World War One stuff,
Mhm.
because it was a war that wasn't personal, where it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're the enemy, but I don't got nothing against you. It's just that I'm fighting this war because of blank,
Yeah, my
and
country made a treaty with these
yeah,
people, and then this domino fell, which caused this chain reaction, and now I'm here, and I don't entirely know why.
yeah, and also it was a war where it was the first kind of new war where everybody
Mm.
was so used to fighting one way in mass, and now there's a house on the ground, like, and it shoots stuff and it moves. What is that? Whoa, there's something flying in the sky and it's shooting at it.
Yeah,
What is this stuff?
get on your horse and charge.
Yeah.
Oh, beans, nuts.
It's literally crazy. Like, so everybody was trying to one up each other,
Yeah,
and
the intense technological revolution that
yeah,
was happening as it played out.
yeah, and like, yeah, and the soldiers on the ground were like, "Well, that's new." Like, literally, because
Hmm.
you've been in the trenches for who knows how long, just sitting there, dying of dysentery, and then all of a sudden you hear the ground shake, and you're like, "I didn't even. When was anybody gonna tell us this?" And
Hmm.
that's the. It was like, well, that's the thing. We weren't going to.
Well,
So,
it's yeah, and you can see echoes of World War One and World War Two that show up in this.
oh yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but like the thing that like those are interesting, but those kind of fall under the fun fact category
yeah.
to me. The thing that I find that draws me to it is Tolkien's reaction to this, to being involved with these, and then to write this fictional story, which yeah, look, makes a lot of assumptions about the goodness of Western civilization and like
Mhm.
how good a king can be. I, as a staunch anti-monarchist, it is there's a little bit of dissonance to read about
Mhm.
good King Aragorn and good King Theoden, but it's a fictional world and they can be good if he chooses to make them. And like, goddamn, Aragorn and Theoden and like these people who he chooses to be his moral paragons are good. They are good and sincere and kind and merciful and even-handed and considerate. Like this is a book that is full of warrior poets, of people who truly care about their fellow man and want what's best for the greater good and for civilization. This is a book full of people who plant trees that they will not sit in the shade of. It's a book about, nobility and sacrifice and fighting an unwinnable thing, not because you can win, but because it's right to do so. And nowhere I think is that more summed up than the wonderful quote from Faramir, who in the books is so good and perfect, almost to the point of farce. He is absolutely like this unflappable, unfailing paragon of good. Um, but in the book, he has a wonderful quote where basically he's being chastised by his father Denethor for not being what Denethor expects from this. You know, Denethor comparatively has a very toxic masculine view of the world, of strength and, you know, might and dominion. You know, it is good to win to Denethor in a way that's different than Faramir's worldview. And Faramir says in response that he does not love the sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor for the armor for its gleam. He cares only what they defend. And like, what a perfect worldview. Like, yeah, that's it exactly. Like, war, the glorification of war, which very much, you know, Boromir represents. You know, he is a honored, decorated soldier. He is a leader of men, and he is revered. But Faramir laments that soldiers are held in such higher esteem than artists and craftsmen and people who, you know, build and create for the good of community and society and the world. And he just truly cares about his fellow man. I don't know, that is one of those quotes that just like lives with me. And I find it genuinely kind of profound. And there's like a half dozen quotes like it, you know, in these books, like things that I just like read a turn of phrase and just be like, what a beautiful way to express this idea.
And they like, if you've seen the movies, they do quite a bit of them in there. Like, it's just quotable after quotable after quotable line in like the films. All three of them are like stacked.
Yeah.
There's so much in all three of them, because you think, oh, you know, everybody, all of like the emotional, you know, is all backloaded to the third one, the final one. But no, I'm like, no, there's all throughout all three of the films, and it's insane that they pulled this off. Now, obviously, there's like huge pivotal moments in each one. Usually, they happen at the end, which is like, or the climax of each one.
Sure.
Which is surprising to me that they were able to just make each one exciting, even though like the story's not over, but this is still crazy type thing. Like in the second one, you know there's going to be a third one, but they're like, what? Like, how is it so crazy now? And we haven't even gotten to the big battles yet, type thing, or the actual serious stuff yet. So,
and like, I've been talking about all this chaff and minutia about like what makes it special to me. It can't be underestimated the fact that the movie adaptations, damn good movies, damn good entertainment, period, full stop, on no matter what level you are appreciating it. Helm's Deep from The Two Towers is real strong contender for greatest battle in cinema.
That's part of the reason why the second one is my favorite. Because
Helm's Deep is a phenomenal achievement in cinema.
Yeah, it is amazing how intense. Well, I just like the build-up. I'm not gonna lie. This is, for me, I like tone. I mean, not tone. I like shoot. I'm looking for a phrase. Something that Avatar: The Last Airbender movie does not have.
Are you talking about like the build-up?
I am big on pacing.
The pacing.
I am. The older I get, the more I'm like, ugh, pacing. You can do better with this.
I'm with you, man.
Tighter.
I care a lot.
You could do tighter. You could do looser. You could do. I'm big on that. I think The Two Towers has some of the best pacing in film ever, because Well,
Sorry.
sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say ever because it starts off strong. The opening of that movie starts off so strong, and I'm like,
Oh, what a banging start.
what are you doing? Even if you
Mm,
didn't watch the first one, you understand that this is a huge monumentous like thing that just happened because
yeah.
it shows the aftermath, and I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing, type thing. I think the Two Towers has some of the best pacing I've ever seen in film, like period.
It
Um,
genuinely does, especially just Helm's Deep
yeah,
as a
yeah,
sequence.
yeah,
Absolutely immaculate pacing. Just like the rhythm, the cadence, the push and pull, the way that it switches between perspectives. It gives you like room to breathe by cutting back to Merry and Pippin with Treebeard,
yeah,
and then gets you right back into it. Like it's really like the gold standard.
yeah. And but I mean, well, I shouldn't say but because you were absolutely right with that because I agree. I and I love the build up to Helm's Deep where they're like
Hmm. Hmm.
it starts like I think towards the middle of the movie where they're like,
Yeah.
okay, when we get here, it's supposed to be this way, but I think it's gonna be this way. And the further it goes along, it's like, oh shit. I think we might have made a huge mistake in thinking this could like we underestimated what's about to happen type situation because then when you get there in like the what you call it the king of Rohan is
Mhm.
like I ain't got shit. Like, I think we're about to die.
Yeah, yeah. Like what makes it so great, and I'm echoing some of the things that they say in the like behind the
Oh
scenes
yeah,
because
yeah,
I've
yeah.
because
I had a few,
um
but it's all right.
but like they talk about the pacing a lot
Yeah.
in the special features of the Two Towers. Like they really communicate that like this was super important to us in a
Hmm.
way that you don't always see. Um but yeah, that build up to it is so important where as you said they probably arrive at like the halfway point of the film and then they have a long extended sequence of taking count of what they have, like checking their supplies, like what resources do we have available to us, looking at it and being like not enough,
Yeah.
we're gonna die, like we're gonna fuck it up. And then Theoden is still trying to put a brave face on it
Yeah.
because what else is there to
Yeah.
do?
And also, he
And
just
then,
lost his child too, so he's
yep,
already like super down. And he's just like,
he,
oh, great, great, more bad news.
he lost his child and his heir.
And he's been
Theoden's
possessed for
bloodline,
a while. What? As wasn't he? Like,
yep, and
yeah,
he's been possessed by Saruman, which is like more or less the direct cause of his son's death.
yeah,
Like it put his son into the line of fire, which so like there's a sense of responsibility there to it. There's a sense of the world is ending. My bloodline has already ended. Like I do
yeah,
not have an heir. Um Now we are faced up against an insurmountable task, and I have to do my best to like keep people's spirits up. Like and that's so rough. It's
Also,
hard to
yeah.
watch.
Also, we need soldiers, so I have to literally tell children and old people that shouldn't have
Hmm.
to fight, "Hey, you gotta fight."
Yeah, because it's a battle for their existence.
Yeah,
Like they don't have the luxury of using only soldiers. Like we have to use everything that we have,
yeah,
and it still probably won't be enough.
yeah,
And then you know you're the movie guy rather than the book guy. So I don't know if you know that this is a change from the book to the film, but in the book it's just them. Like they're a little bit better off than they are in the movie, but it's just them. And then in the film,
the elves show up.
elves from Lothlorien show up in order to honor the last alliance of
Hmm.
elves and men. Um, and that is such a perfect change. That's such a good,
Hmm.
smart change from in the process of adaptation. Because again, I love the process of adaptation so goddamn
Yeah,
much.
I
I
know.
love talking about it. I love examining it. And this is like a big swing. Like, I want you to like really consider like
Mhm.
how risky this was, and they like for fan reaction against this, and for like how it would be perceived,
Yeah.
because it could really easily spoil the tone
Yeah.
of it. And in filming, they were doing all kinds of stuff. They were going even wilder. Like, famously, Arwen shows up
Oh wow,
to the
really?
battle with a sword and is doing some ass
crazy
kicking
stuff. Yeah.
along with Aragorn. They filmed it. It wasn't just storyboarded. It wasn't just planned. They filmed it.
That's kind of awesome.
And then they cut it out
Yeah.
afterwards, because they realized like that's not what we need to do for this.
It was too
character.
much. Yeah, it was too much.
And that was totally the right decision. But like, the fact that they made all these swings, that they tried all of these things, and then they ended up with this kind of perfect version of it.
Yeah.
Man, what a miracle. Like, what a blessing that we
Yeah.
have the version of the movie that we do. But yeah, the elves showing up, like, absolutely the good shit.
Well, I think it's a testament to how people remember that. Because yeah, if you read the books, because you just told me that in the books the elves don't show up, it's just them, which is way more bleak. But also, for an audience perspective, that's kind of a huge downer, and it's less like you have to do a lot of like trusting your audience to be like, okay, these guys can just pull it off type situation until. Or not getting immediately obliterated. And also, you want some type of like audience like, oh man, maybe, just maybe, like type thing. Like, because that's how I felt when the elves showed up, and they're like, I'm like, oh, I know how elves are. They're all crazy. So maybe they might be able to pull this off. Because that's how I felt personally. Not reading the books, but seeing this, because I knew, because I think a good thing is way before that, or not way before that, but before that, Aragorn gives his speech to the king, and which I think is one of the profound speeches of, like, or not speeches, but just talks of like all of the movies and stuff. If we're talking that, because you know they both realize what's happening. They're both in the reality of the situation, but rather than like the king who just kind of gave up, Aragorn's like, nah, we need to handle our shit. This is going to suck. We are probably going to die, but we still need to handle our shit. Like,
we gotta do it anyways.
Yeah, we have to do this. Like, and I'm all about it, because that's the thing is, yeah, I think half of this is Viggo Mortensen's performance too, because it did feel like he was kind of scared, but he also knew what he had to do. While the king, I forget the guy's name who's the actor is.
The king is Theoden. The actor is Bernard Hill.
Yeah, Bernard Hill. The actor. But he did such a good job of, I'm tired. Like, it actually feels like I'm tired. I don't know what, like, there's nothing. I'm too old. I don't got anything. I'm tired.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously Viggo's character is like, I don't give a shit. You're the king here. Like, I get it. I get it. You had a bad time, but you know, we gotta see this through. We gotta go down fighting, in other words. And I'm like, I'm all about that. I like that. Even I think didn't he convince his daughter to be like, no, you could pick up this sword. You could do it. Go ahead. Type of situation.
Eowyn,
I know a lot of people are like weird on Eowyn, but I also kind of like
it's just
that
like
too.
I'm just trying to, you know, be accurate in how it's depicted. So Eowyn wants to fight.
Yeah.
Eowyn wants to have a sword, and he's just like, I get it. You're going to be more useful elsewhere, and she does not like that.
Yeah.
As an answer. Man, oh god, I love Eowyn's little monologue about, you know, I do not fear death.
Oh,
I
yeah,
fear
yeah.
a cage until where I will be forced to sit placidly until time has left me behind
Yeah.
and I no longer care for for glory. And it's like the Rohan as a culture is very Viking. You know,
Yeah.
they're very like Valhalla, like
Yeah.
death and glory in battle.
Death!
Um,
Death!
doesn't always work for me. Really works for me here. Like
Yeah.
this is like the good version of it to me. And yeah, Eowyn is so great.
Well, this is gonna play out later. Oh yeah, I can't wait. But
and then so I also want to make an aside because my wife and I have a faux rivalry / argument that is perpetual and ongoing, where she champions Rohan and I champion Gondor just as quote unquote best civilization.
oh, see, I'm gonna be on your wife's side because I champion Rohan as well.
Rohan is unquestionably better in terms of like the people who are in charge are good people and do a bunch of dope shit.
Yeah.
And so like obviously, right?
And I also like their theme. I love the theme of
we
Rohan.
gotta do a type 5 on the music.
Yeah.
Because, like,
Oh,
the
we
music
will.
in these movies are-
we're gonna get there. But yeah.
But like, yeah, like there's a lot to like about Rohan. But Gondor is my particular flavor because I love a civilization with ancient roots that's past its prime and in decline. I love the empty streets of Minas Tirith. I love how it's got all this abandoned opulence. I love the monologue that Gandalf has talking about Denethor counting the lines of his ancestors more dear than his sons. And like there's a profound sadness to it that I just like that really resonates with me. I love how past their prime Gondor is and how most of it is falling into ruin and unable to live up to the glory of the past. If that glory ever existed at all in the way that they talk about it. Spoiler, it did because because we have access to all that history and all the stuff, but like but then like shining through are like these brief little flashes of like what they could be or who they used to be, and those echoes of old glory like just really speaks to me. Also, Denethor's a little shit and I love him. He sucks so bad.
Well, that's to me. I like this. Well, I don't want to take too much away from you because obviously this is all you. But I did want to comment on that a little bit because I found that like for me personally, I am like a big proponent kind of guy when it comes to monarchy stuff. Because I find that very fascinating.
You're gonna have to explore. You're gonna have to more clearly define what you mean by "I'm a big proponent of monarchy."
No, well, I'm getting into that. You just cut me, and I'm not like.
You just said you're a big proponent of monarchy stuff.
No, like, well, stuff like in that, like stuff like
in
that.
fiction.
In stories and stuff, because I find that like the history of that kind of stuff very fascinating. Because, and I think the Lord of the Rings as a whole kind of does like it without telling you what is like kind of the right answer, but kind of telling you what's the right answer. It shows you, okay, this is kind of what a good king is supposed. This is what a king is supposed to do. This is usually what a king ends up being, and like Denethor, because he's that kind of a guy, and he just completely gives up and doesn't care. All he cares about, like you said before, is like, nah, we just gotta win, and by any means, and if you're not gonna do what I say, then what good are you? Type situation. And obviously I think is John Noble, who I love that actor anyway.
So good.
I think he was perfect, but it's like, it's almost funny, like because of how he just dismisses his son. It's
Oh,
almost
yeah.
funny how he does, because he's just like, you know what? I don't actually care. He's like, you could die, and he's like, would it? You'd rather be like that whole, that whole quote. He's like, would you rather me have died instead of Boromir? He's like, yes, I wish that. And I was like, that's so lame, man.
Don't say that out loud.
Yeah, he's like, that's so
Think that
lame.
privately.
Yeah, that's so lame, man. And he said it in front of
That's
like
fucked up.
everybody. He didn't even care.
Like, there's such an energy of just like, Faramir, my son, do we have any Doritos? And then Faramir's like, we have Cool Ranch, my lord. And he's like, Boromir would have
Yeah,
brought me nacho cheese.
Meanwhile,
Boromir would have brought me the flavor worthy of Gondor.
Meanwhile, he's literally just like licking his fingers like intensely with like the Cheetos he's eating.
You piece of shit. What a piece of garbage.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck Denethor.
Oh well,
God,
yeah, I
I
mean
love
he
him
gets
so
it
much.
obviously, but I laughed out loud when I saw that. I was like, I can't believe this. It's actually funny.
So, like, a difference between the book and the movie. First of all, like, let me just paint a word picture. In the movie, Denethor is trying to burn himself and his son alive, because he's totally given up. The White Tower of Ecthelion, which is this big spike that's at the very top of Minas Tirith. He's got this big tower that's up there, and people will talk about seeing weird lights flashing up there. And they say that that's where Denethor reaches out his mind to wage battle with the Dark Lord. And they're actually, like, accidentally totally right. Like, this rumor is correct. What's happening is that Denethor has the Palantir, and he's able to use that basically as a weapon of war. He's doing information research and reconnaissance. The problem is that Sauron has a Palantir and has basically corrupted the Palantir network.
Yeah.
And so he is able to influence what Denethor sees. He can't outright lie. He can't show him something that isn't true, but he can direct his view to paint an unflattering picture, an unrealistic depiction of a situation to make things seem worse and scarier than they are.
He can always, whenever he's looking out, like something like, he can always show him that everybody's losing, everybody's dying all the time.
Exactly, that things are hopeless.
Yeah.
And in this most recent read of it, I'm doing that and I'm like, oh my god, Denethor's just doom scrolling.
Yeah. That's exactly what he's doing.
My man is doom scrolling and he has absolutely black pilled and given up, and he's just like, I'm just gonna
that's exactly how you just said it. That is his entire character.
I know. But like it's done really, like, to me, weirdly sympathetically, where it's just like, you are wrong every step of the way, but like, I understand your fear and I understand why how you got here. You're also a bad father. That's a different thing.
Yeah, but I think that is very like fascinating in my like I said, going back to what I was saying before, and before you could clarify that.
This was the setup so I could say the thing I was actually trying to say.
Okay.
So the point is, this is the difference between how Denethor dies in the movie versus the book.
Okay.
In the movie, Denethor is trying to burn himself and his son after everything that I just said. And Gandalf's horse rears up and he like kicks him in the weirdest shot of the movie that I don't think it flows well. And then Denethor like has that moment of reconciliation where he's like, oh my god, what have I done? And then he catches fire, and then the next shot of him is running off of the parapet as the camera zooms out, which like the intention of it is to show ultimately how small and meaningless he was, where Denethor dies and it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of this battle that is waging, which is like worthy conceptually, right? The problem is that the burial halls are about 1 kilometer away from the parapet. And so just the sheer logistics of how far he has to run always makes me laugh. It's very funny to me. So,
okay.
I don't love that scene is what I'm saying. It's like one of the few that I kind of have some quibbles with.
Okay.
In the book, this is awesome. The book, Denethor dies, where basically they're like, we're taking Faramir, and he's like, fine, I'm still burning myself. And he gets onto the funeral pyre,
Mhm.
and he takes the Palantir, and he lies down on it and immolates himself. And then there's just like a brief aside, which is like, to anyone who attempted to use the Palantir in the future, all they got was a vision of burning hands clutching the orb.
Wow.
And I'm just like, that's so metal.
Wow.
That's hardcore.
Okay.
It's like a ghost story.
Yeah.
It's very cool to me. I just love
All
that.
right. Okay. Cool.
Uh,
So it's way more like, it's way less cinematic, but way more, I guess way more if it's like if you want to talk lasting impression versus like bursts,
yeah.
like
It's like the last
comeuppance.
line of a ghost story.
Yeah.
You know, snuck in there.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's very cool and evocative. I don't think you could have translated that to the screen.
No,
I
not
think they were
really.
right to make some changes.
Not without narration, and nobody needed, and that's not like
yeah, we're not
the-
going to start now.
yeah, we wouldn't do that now. So yeah.
But it's really cool on the page, is what
Okay.
I'm saying.
All right. Yeah. That does sound, it sounds different enough that it would be like, I don't like, cause you got me thinking, how would they do that, translate that? And I don't, not without having some type of narration or something, or people
Yeah.
in the know getting it, but it wouldn't really make sense to everybody else.
Or writing a new scene where someone tries to use that Palantir and is just like, shit's haunted.
Yeah.
Not doing that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be worth it.
So,
But it's cool.
yeah. So it's very like, but yeah, what I was like saying, and just this is really quick, is I just find that very interesting of the different types, like I think not me and you, but I think maybe me and your wife talked about this at one point, like just the realms of men, and like she was like, yeah, I'm not about that. And I'm like, I get it. However, I do find it fascinating because it's like, why do we, and like I said, this is just something I find fascinating because I like a lot of adventure stories, like from Alexander Dumas, and he's like my favorite author, and he does a lot of stuff during with the French kings and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, why do we hate kings in monarchy so much? Oh, because usually in actual history, they suck.
Gestures vaguely to history.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, because they suck. But then, you know, obviously this is fiction, but, you know, Tolkien, he says, well, yeah, but this is what a king should be. Y'all love, like, Aragorn, and I'm like, yeah, but, you know, but that also is open-ended in the way because he is going to age. So who knows what's going to come down the line and everything like that, and who knows what people are going to turn into, not necessarily what they are now. And that puts like a whole big thing, and I'm like, that's always really interesting to me because we all would love an Aragorn type hero, basically, because let's be completely honest, he is the hero in everything. There's tons of heroes, but he is the hero. He is the man.
He's the archetypal hero. He's King Arthur.
Yeah. You know, except not necessarily an asshole in his, you know, in his selfishness. But that's another thing. We could talk about Once and Future King
like
later.
Idealized, you know, he's the platonic ideal of a king. Like if someone's like, imagine a good king.
Yeah.
Like,
but
that's Aragorn.
To me, I like that idea because it's like, imagine a good king, but I'm like, well, the only reason why he's a good king is because he's a good man. So
yeah, very much.
He's even without his king status until everybody finds out and they're like, what? He's like, nah. He's busy doing this, like the hand cutting the throat thing, like the entire time. Like, please don't say that. But you know, he's like, was awesome even before that though. So I'm like always fascinated. It's like, because there are some people that will willingly take that role and say, this is my responsibility. And then there's people like Frodo who's like, nah, I'm kind of done. Or, and I mean, even
at the end.
Yeah, at the end. It even before Frodo, because I know this from like, you know, The Hobbit and even at the end of the movie where you got what's his name? Bilbo, who is also like that kind of a selfless hero, but he's also like, I think that's pretty cool because he just like, I just want to live in my house. I just want to,
Totally.
and I have
Something that I love about these books is that, like, hobbits culturally
yeah.
are depicted as just like, here's what they like. They like to eat, they like to drink, they like to fuck, they like to vibe.
They like to
just wanna-
party.
they just want to garden
Yeah.
and party. And
It's prime
that's
cottage
it.
core. It's prime cottage core.
The cottage core energy is huge. And then, like, it's more textual in the book, but it's also true in the movies.
Yeah.
Like, it's explicitly like, no, hey, it's me, the King of the West. I will do everything in my power to make sure that the hobbits get to keep that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is something that I value. It is important that there is a culture in the world that is not warlike, that, like,
Mhm.
just wants to be little guys who vibe. Like, isn't that aspirational? Why would anyone want anything other than that? Like, we should all try to be hobbits. Like, they're presented as
Mhm.
like
Well,
a good in a way that I love.
yeah, which is very interesting how you said that. It's like we should all want to be hobbits because I'm like I don't know if this was intentional, but it's one of those things because I agree with you and yet I don't agree with you, but like I said, my opinions don't necessarily matter in this situation, but I want to say my 2 cents anyway because it's on my mind of I like the fact that yeah, everybody like yeah, the hobbits are like idealized, but also there's people out in the world that want to protect that. It's like yeah, we're not like that, but I also find value in that. So I'm going to protect that part of like the world and everything.
Totally.
And everything. And I find that very cool because like for I don't know, like that's something I am like a big proponent of using it in the right sense. I am a big proponent of protecting like these different cultures and different societies that maybe the world has forgotten about and stuff like that. I'm like, no, there's value in that. There's value in certain places where they only speak this type of language, like some places in like the South America where the indigenous culture is so small now to it's like less than 100 and they only speak this specific language. I'm like, I find that very fascinating. I'm like, okay, who is on this in protecting that culture? And we have cultures here, like we live in America for anybody who's listening who doesn't live here. Like we have cultures here, indigenous cultures here, where they're very small, very unique, very this, very that. And I'm like, all of these just should be, valued and protected. Because I would want
cultivated.
that. Yeah, because I would want that for my own culture. I continuously want that for my own culture. Like,
absolutely. And when I say cultivated, I don't mean that we need like people to come in and know better than them. They need to be given the opportunity and means to thrive.
Yeah. And that's going to differ depending on what's going on. Because you can very easily do the wrong thing for the greater good, like in your eyes and stuff.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of collaboration to that. But I've always had that. And I love that aspect of the Lord of the Rings world, where it's just like, there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of different types of cultures. There's a lot of different types of stuff going on. Creatures and like magical people. And, the wizards are their own thing. And, it's crazy. And yet everybody's like, yeah, I know who you are. Oh, yeah, I know who you are. I ain't trying to come in there and do stuff unless like obviously you're like a Sauron type person, but then he has his own issues when he's creating like orcs and wait, is it? It's not. Does he create the orcs or does he create the Uruk-hai, or is that both the same?
So you said Sauron. I think you meant Saruman. Saruman is the one who creates the Uruk-hai.
Yes, Sauron is the big eye.
Correct.
But yeah, that's what I meant. Yes, you knew who I meant. But yeah, I just find that cool too. So I was like, oh man, yeah, you're speaking a lot.
I agree with everything that you're saying. The distinction that I'm making is like me specifically like trying to relay Tolkien's worldview,
Mm.
which is like I was involved in one of the world wars, and then I witnessed World War II as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, are we not fighting for a world without this? Are we not
Yeah.
fighting for a world without war? Are we not fighting for a world where we can truly live in peace and coexistence? And wouldn't that be admirable? Like, isn't there a nobility in the ability to live in peace genuinely?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not the illusion of it, like a real society of peace. And that's them. That's the
Yeah.
hobbits. And everyone in fiction is like, yeah, like that is valuable, that is precious,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that does need to be protected, like, because God willing, we will be able to join them one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um
And that's I agree with that. Like, you kind of broke down like the whole idea of what, like, I guess of like what Tolkien is saying. Well, one of the things he's saying a lot, but
Mhm.
one of the things he's saying is, yeah, like, we've been through I've been through a lot, which means we've all been through a lot.
Mhm.
This should be the end game right here. This
Right, this is
society
what
should be the end game here.
this is what we're working towards.
Yeah. We're not there yet, but we're always working towards that, which is why we always need that as a model type situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love how the hobbits are depicted as not warlike. They are not warlike in their natures, but they are crafty, and they're resourceful,
Mm-hmm.
and they're resilient, and they're determined, and they are able to fight for themselves when needed. As someone who's only watched the movies and not read the books, you probably are only tangentially familiar with the Scouring of the Shire,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah, I've been
like
told.
the
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a bonus epilogue after the ring has been destroyed, when the hobbits return back home, and they discover that Saruman has beaten them there and is in the process of industrializing the Shire,
Mm-hmm.
and also has created a like bureaucratic system of oppression
Yeah.
with the
Like, he basically
intent.
enslaved them.
It's more like a serfdom. It's very rules and bureaucracy
Yeah.
focused. Like, it's I just watched the movie Brazil for the first time.
Really?
It's got some shades of Brazil. That
Really?
movie ruled. Oh,
I can't believe you
I want
just
to talk
watched
about
this.
Brazil. It's crazy that I hadn't.
Yeah,
It's
like,
so
Brazil is like one of
absolutely
the
my
best
shit.
films like ever considered.
It totally rules.
Wow, that's
but there's
very
like
impressive.
shades of
But
that
okay.
like bureaucracy
Yeah.
and paperwork and like that kind of. It's a very British
No, you
idea
yeah.
of like a
Yeah.
dystopia.
Oh, he
to-
basically just like, oh, I know how to write this. That's what Tolkien basically
Totally.
did. I know how to
Um,
write this.
So that's the situation that the Shire is under when the hobbits return from home. And then our main quartet, their power, what they bring to it is them looking at it and them being like, this is wrong, and it's wrong.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
And then, there's a bunch of people who are like, but the rules. And it's just like, fuck the rules if this is what you get from the rules.
Yeah.
Like, look at this. It's ridiculous. The Scouring of the Shire always surprises me in how much I enjoy it on the page, because it's basically like a miniature Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
It kind of rules. But yeah, like it's also like very cool to see that, and to see like another aspect of like the hobbits and their resiliency and the way that they fight for themselves. And then when the battle is over and they have taken back the Shire, they bury the dead and they honor them, and then they go back to their lives of peace.
Yeah.
Um
They go back to doing
And,
what
like-
they've been doing. So
exactly. Hashtag yes.
Yeah. And
Hashtag good job.
yeah,
Hashtag admirable.
I mean, I know we're not talking about The Hobbit right now, but that is one of my probably favorite parts of the second film, The Desolation of Smaug, or Smaug.
That's right. Thank you for pronouncing it
Yes,
correctly.
I know, but I at least know
and
that.
it's Gandalf.
Gandalf.
Not Gandalf.
It's Gandalf.
Not Gandalf.
It's Gandalf.
Gandalf.
But I love the talk. It's such a small scene between Bilbo and I guess the older white bearded dwarf when they go in the door and he's kind of just explaining, okay, this is what you really got to do and all this kind of stuff. And Bilbo's kind of psyching himself up. And I love this scene because it literally just explains how the hobbits are. It's just he's like, I am terrified, but he's like, no, I can do this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna help you guys. I came to help, and I want to help. And I was like, I love that scene. It like always kind of, and it's the scene is just masterfully crafted in my opinion too, because of the music and all the lighting and stuff like that. And I just like, yes, and it definitely builds up that tension, but also it just lets it kind of breathe too, because it's just one more person like looking at a hobbit and saying, man, you guys are like something else. Like you guys
weirdly have it all figured out.
Yeah, you guys are. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like you guys really kind of know what you're doing. Like you got life.
And that's such a thing about hobbits is that everyone constantly underestimates them.
Yeah, the hint basically towards the beginning anyway of how hobbits really are is like hobbits can just walk right past you and you barely notice. They would like you literally wouldn't notice them. So they're just. It's not that they're tiptoeing around. They're just that tiny and that pleasant that they're not making that much of a problem. They're never a problem. They just walk past. You won't even notice they're there. And I feel, but at the same time, when they do make it known, it's like almost a big deal because people never see hobbits. They know they exist, but they're like, why are you out here?
Much is made of them basically being able to choose to be invisible just by being very quiet and sneaky.
Yeah.
They're small and quiet and can get away with like damn near anything. Like they are really excellent burglars if they wanted to be. They just don't want to be.
Yeah. Which is why it's so interesting because like I just love how the dwarves treat like Bilbo. It's like Bilbo's like never been anywhere because obviously hobbits are never anywhere. You never see them anywhere except in their world, in their realm, in their little place. So anytime they're anywhere, it's like a huge deal for everybody. I always think that's funny. Like everybody's like, whoa, wait, you're a hobbit. What's going down? Like, why are you out here? Yeah, why are you here?
Are you real?
Yeah.
And it's just like, bro.
Yeah, like comparative to everybody else, like even a human, they look like children. They look like toddlers running around half the time. So it's just like, a human would definitely just pass by them, and they're like, unless you're looking for them, it's like crazy. So I always appreciated how they're depicted in the entirety of Lord of the Rings. They're always depicted the same of, oh my goodness, like handle with care. Like these people are really special.
Yeah.
So
they're great. Love a hobbit.
Yeah. And they also apparently people love that they're barefoot all the time. So
also, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my youth barefoot. Not
and
because
I
of
hate
Hobbit,
it.
but just
and I hate being barefoot.
I did.
I hate it. I love having something
I do
on
have
my feet.
weird wide feet. Genuinely, where it's just like someone's like, what's your shoe size? It's like, man, I don't know. Because like it is 9 in length. It's like 11 in width. Like
really?
They're real wide feet.
You kind of
and
have
they
tiny
are
feet.
hairy. So I've been untrue.
Tarzan feet.
Factually untrue. I have been roasted by my parents for having hobbit feet for my
really
life, so
well then again you're talking to somebody who's like a 12 and a half, so
Yeah, you got regular.
Yeah, I
big
got regular big feet.
You got regular big old feet. I got real wide feet.
So you got Tarzan feet and Tarzan toes, which is
I assume you're talking about Disney's Tarzan, which allow me to grind on tree branches.
yeah. Well, Doug also shout out to Doug once again. Doug also has Tarzan toes and very hairy. That's kind of gross.
Mm-hmm.
But he also is like, but Doug has big feet like I do. So, but yeah, that is a sentiment I do not share because I hate going barefoot anywhere.
Yeah.
And everyone
I
around
once
me.
spent an entire summer. I spent 3 consecutive months not wearing shoes consciously. I just chose not to, and
Yeah.
I was able to.
Nah.
I don't remember what my reasoning was. I thought it was sweet though. I was like,
Nah,
hell
bro.
Nah, shoes.
Everyone around me is the same way. I am the lone soul of nah, I gotta have something on my feet. I have to be like wearing slippers or something like that. I am not
Oh.
afraid of socks or something like that. And everybody's like, no, I want to go barefoot. I want to just go around and feel the earth beneath my toes. I'm like, that's gross. I don't want
Yeah.
that.
They're like, I want to touch grass, and you're like, bad.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You can touch grass with your face. You know, it
As
doesn't.
I'm rubbing your
Yeah,
face
you don't
in
have to. It doesn't have to be your feet.
eat that dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in my youth. As an adult, I'm very much a slipper man. I love.
Oh, I
slippers.
love slippers too.
I wear through my slippers every year. I'm pulling up my slippers so Corey can see them. Corey, these are my slippers.
Wait, hold on
And
a
you can
second.
see
Okay, now I can see it. Hey, you want to see
They are-
mine? You want to see
they are
mine?
nasty. They are falling apart. I'm showing off the gigantic hole that I've
You-
got. It's a solid 2-inch.
You want to see
size
mine?
hole.
These are mine.
Uh-huh.
I've had these for years, and now like the inside is so oily and gross. It's great.
As nasty.
It's great.
However, you've had them for years. These are 9 months old.
What are
So,
you doing?
Wearing them
You use
every day.
You use them as combat boots.
I
Go out
I'll-
stomp in the
I
yard.
often forget to take my slippers off when I go to like
Go
the
to bed.
grocery store.
Or go to the
Nobody
shower.
go to bed.
Oh, I still have my slippers on, and I'm in the
Oh
shower.
my, look at
I'm
that.
completely naked except for these slippers. Oh well, might as well
Yes.
finish the job. Adam, are you
Love
gonna take your
slippers.
slippers off? No.
But like that's part of the problem is that like my feet are so wide that like the sides of shoes are always busting out.
Oh.
It's just how
Yeah.
my feet are shaped.
Your feet.
Just how my feet is
Your
shaped.
feet is shaped. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So that's all well and good. That is a good thing. I know we could probably talk about that question, which is like, why do you like it so much, like forever? Because there's so many things to talk about.
Well, I mean,
Like,
like,
what-
unless we're going to go scene by scene and
Yeah.
page by page through it, like I won't be able to say all the reasons why I like it. But like,
I mean, if I bring it up,
yeah,
you will. But because that's one thing we wanted to touch on real quick is the music. I think it's Howard Shore who does
Yes.
actually all of them, which is
correct.
that's really good. They didn't have to go to like other composers they just have Howard Shore just doing the whole thing, and it's one of the most recognizable themes in music today, almost like I would say just as much as like the Star Wars theme or something like that. People recognize the Lord of the Rings like music.
Absolutely.
So I will have to say too, because I have stuff to say about this because I am a big, huge proponent of music. Music affects me. And it is a generator. It is one of like maybe 3 generators of my creativity is listening to music, listening to soundtracks and everything. And I will have to say that it is the Lord of the Rings soundtrack is god tier. The whole way through.
Absolutely.
I already mentioned that the theme of Rohan, the Riders of Rohan, is probably one of my favorite themes ever.
It's wonderful.
Because it it is like whenever I hear that, and I think I was talking, like I said, I was talking about this with Leanne, because she's like, oh, that theme, it wells up in you, and you're just like, yes. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, but there's so many themes. There's so much stuff in just the music alone in Lord of the Rings where it's so iconic and so, apropos, if I could use a big word. And it's just,
you may.
And it's just it's so good. Like I'm just thinking of like all the themes and just the music play by play actually. Like it doesn't even start out with the most famous theme. It starts out with the theme that is the title, which is do 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 do. Which I used to be able to play a lot of stuff on the piano of Lord of the Rings. I probably will have to feel it out now because I haven't, I actually looked at the sheet music in a long time. But I used to be able to play a lot of the themes, especially the theme that everybody knows is like the Hobbit's theme. What you call it? What is it? Is it actually called the Hobbit's theme, or is it actually somebody's? Like,
so the Shire theme is called Concerning Hobbits.
Yeah, like
or rather, the soundtrack that features the most full statement of the Hobbit theme. I want to emphasize that so much of my musical vocabulary is me just learning how to describe the Lord of the Rings soundtrack.
Can you play any of it?
If I had $1 for every time I was at a wedding where someone walked down the aisle to the song Concerning Hobbits, the fullest statement of the Shire theme, I would have $2, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
You know people, man. You know people. But hey, I know people in my life who would probably love that if they didn't have that anyway. They're huge, like, Lord of the Rings nerds and stuff like that. I know a lot of Lord of the Rings nerds. Like yourself, that just know stuff and constantly read it and everything. And I'm like, okay. Yep. And that's the thing is, I knew of it. I just never was, obviously into it until I watched like you kind of made me watch the movies, and I was like, okay, there's some value here. Okay, there's some value here. Okay, this is cool. Okay, that's really cool. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Okay, this is not cheesy as I thought it was going to be. Okay, what's her name is the elf princess. What's her name? Man, I forget her name.
Are you talking about Galadriel or Arwen?
Yes, they're both hot. So I was like, yeah, sure. Aragorn is actually a cool guy, and he's the hero. So I was like, okay, cool. Like everybody was like, the bad guys are actually legit. Because they're like,
they're
I ain't playing around.
Ring wraiths? I haven't said anything about ring wraiths. Ring wraiths are so fucking cool.
And like nobody's playing around. Like they're like, nah, if I say I'm gonna kill you, I am literally going to stab you. Like that's what's happening. I'm not just talking. Like I love the fact of like Sauron actually being a legit threat and not just a guy guy in a high tower. Like people are actually legit afraid of him for a reason. And he even has like a crazy backstory, and even the rings and the power and how the magic works is crazy. And I'm like, wow, that all makes actual sense. I love this because
as far as like the the Lord of the Rings has 10,000 years of history and all that stuff. It's just like, if you want to know like what makes that cooler than than my world building for 10,000 years of history, it's that Sauron is the lieutenant of the actual big bad of the Lord of the Rings. And he's the major player in this. He's just like the right-hand man.
Yeah, I knew that. I did know that because I've had people explain a lot of stuff to me. And he's like, you hardcore. Think that's bad? It's the same thing with the dragons. The dragon thing, which I learned on my own a while ago. Smaug is awesome. He's not even close to being the biggest dragon. Not even
No,
close.
he's like the last of the great dragons.
Yeah.
But as far as like the history of great dragons, he's small potatoes.
Yeah, like quite literally. He's like
Yeah.
tiny compared to like
the aforementioned Ancalagon the Black is
like his
the size of a mountain. Range.
Yeah, he's like the size of a mountain. And that's pretty cool. And in the history, didn't like the elves or like the elf hero try to fight him or something? Or fought him?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
He got soloed by
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm gonna get this mixed up because I want to say Glorfindel solos a Balrog, which is pretty hardcore. And then he shows up in the books. He's the one who brings Frodo to across the Ford of Isen instead of Arwen. To the Council of Elrond.
Yeah.
And then in the Council of Elrond, they're like, we should send an elf. How about Legolas? And it's just like, bro,
I'm right here.
pick the guy who soloed a Balrog, bro.
Yeah.
But of course it has reasons and stuff. But like
and
that's
also,
like the
also all the elves are
ridiculously
OP
legendary figure. All of the elves are OP.
Yeah, all the
elves
even
are
within
OP
that,
anyway. Like
yeah,
he is a almost cartoonishly legendary figure. It's difficult for me to even think of like it's like One Punch Man was on the Council of Elrond. This is ridiculous.
Well, even what's his name? Like Elrond himself is kind of hardcore. You just don't necessarily see it, but
absolutely.
Even him, like because I love like we used to make fun of this all the time of like that one scene like towards the beginning where Elrond is like what's his name? He's like, throw it into the fire, destroy it. No.
And then Isildur just goes,
no. Forget it. And he's like,
Isildur!
And he's like, oh, stupid idiots. That's like what he's just talking about the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's
and then
an
it flashes
idiot.
back to the present day, and he's just like, on that day 3,000 years ago, I really should have pushed this.
Yeah, I know.
Volcano. I really should have done that.
Should have just done it.
And just been like, oopsie daisy.
Shrug.
Butterfingers.
Shrug.
Well.
Well, that happened.
That's another one of my favorite lines of it where, in the Council of Elrond, they're recounting all of the history that led to this moment, including Melkor, the actual big bad, who is basically like the Lucifer figure, almost like a fallen god, like, and then Sauron, who is his lieutenant, and like all of the centuries and millennia of battles and back and forth. And I want to say it's Elrond describes, the many years and the many years and the many defeats and many fruitless victories, just like this like cosmic pointlessness to all the conflict when you have a lifespan of that age, when you are able to truly see the big picture. And just see like the things that mattered, like we allowed to fester and rot and grow malignant, and now here we are again.
Yeah, which is also really, I always find really cool, and that was obviously on purpose too. Just like I said, I go back to everybody is just about time. Like,
there's so many perspectives on time. Yeah,
and he's just like, oh. It's just too much. He's like, here we go again type situation.
Totally.
But at the same time, which is funny, like the one thing that throws him off is like, but you guys do have a hobbit here. And that's so interesting. He's like, you guys do have him. Especially when he's like, I'll take the ring. And he's like, huh. That's interesting.
We actually have a hobbit. And then it's like, actually, you've got 4 hobbits. And he's like, that's too many hobbits.
Yeah, basically.
We don't need that many.
And basically everybody's like, oh, yeah, you do.
They're here already.
Yeah, they're here
Well,
already.
all right.
We can't send them home.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Let's talk more about the music though, because
Yeah,
like
music.
I didn't mean to divert
Oh
away
no,
from that.
no, man. This is what the talk is all about. Just geeking out about it.
Great.
So
Um, I think there's a very real argument to be made that the Lord of the Rings score by Howard Shore is the greatest film score in cinema history. And by
oh, was
that
that what was
I
that
don't
all?
just mean I don't just mean the one that I like the
Oh,
most, but I mean like the
bro.
most complete, the most robust. Um, people when talking about music, there's a motif, which is
Mhm.
just a recurring bit of music. And then there's leitmotif, which is a recurring bit of music that has meaning to
Mhm.
it, right? So you're watching Pacific Rim and you hear da 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 da. That means that there's a Jaeger on the screen.
Yeah.
That's the Jaeger sound. And then you hear the da 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 da.
Yeah.
That's the kaiju music. That happens when kaiju's on screen. And for most movies, you can really only develop maybe 2 leitmotifs just due to the runtime, right?
Mhm.
You need something that's longer form in order to really flesh out all of these different nuances. And that's like the big strength of franchises to me. Star Wars is allowed to develop all of these wonderful themes
Mhm.
and then weave them in and out, and they mean something when you hear them.
Yes.
And that's really cool. I really love that. This is distinct from like a movie where it's just got like a recurring song
Mhm.
or whatever. It's the meaning that makes a leitmotif a leitmotif. And The Lord of the Rings has the best leitmotifs in cinema as far as I'm concerned. There's so many of them. Each major culture gets its own leitmotif. As well as like different like I even like ideas or concepts will get their own. Like The Ring has its own
Mhm.
theme, and then like sailing across the sea has a theme.
Mhm.
And the way that they're developed and evolve and like they have context is all so cool. Like the things that I'll come back to are during the Council of Elrond, Boromir gets up and starts talking about Gondor
Mhm.
and the great need that they have and the nobility of those people who, by their blood are your lands safe. Um, and there's just a single solo horn playing the theme of Gondor.
Yeah.
And that's the first time that you hear it. And it's the only time you hear it in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Mhm.
And they had the foresight to write this score as like this total work.
Mhm.
And as a result, it's just totally seamless and unified.
Which
and they're
they did.
able to.
Which, quick aside, they did do for all the movies anyway. They kind of filmed them all at once, so that
Yeah.
definitely helps. That there was no time in between.
Absolutely.
They just decided to go hard in the paint, and he's decided to make a giant epic. How you make a giant epic? So
They did decide to break their foot off in it.
yeah, well, put their foot in it.
Did-
Break their foot.
Put their foot in it.
Break their foot off is actually like I'm gonna break my foot right up off your ass.
I'm trying.
It's all right.
Wait for the
It's just
shit.
funny to hear.
Uh,
It's just funny to hear it from you.
But like, yeah, they it is important to conceptualize that both like the books and the films are a single unified work.
Yeah.
Right? The Lord of the Rings is the whole thing. It's not 3 books in a series. It's a single story being told. And the fact that they were able to film it in that way and then release it the way that they did is an absolute miracle. And again, like I can't just rehash everything from the behind the scenes, but like the development of it was so tumultuous and bizarre, and the fact that it came out the way it did is such a miracle. Yeah, and that absolutely extends to the soundtrack. The way that you were talking about,
Yeah.
it was all kind of composed simultaneously and able to build off of itself.
Yeah.
And I love it. The the most famous example that I would say is during the Battle of Helm's Deep, where you've got three factions. You've got Rohan and the Elves of Lothlorien
Yeah.
defending the keep, while the Orcs of Isengard are attacking. And depending on the ebb and flow of the battle, all of those themes will weave in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fucking cool.
Oh yeah.
Like, I can't emphasize enough. It's the best thing in the world. Like, it's
Well, how, like, going back to Helm's Deep, how that whole sequence, and here's the thing, mind you, it's a battle sequence, which is, you know how I am about like fight sequences and smart combat in film.
yeah.
Especially on this grand of a scale, because this is like I think one of the first times modern giant battles are depicted on like a grand scale, like how Peter Jackson did it. Like he's now
It's
famous
the
for it
first
now.
modern
That's why I said modern.
large scale battle of this kind.
Yeah.
Because like in the behind the scenes, there's a lot of talk about the software Massive,
Yeah.
which was developed for this purpose. But previously, like battles of this scale were not really possible.
Yeah. Well, not this scale, because you would need. I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
they don't have that kind of like technology back then. They had big battles and stuff, but it was very much, you know, we need a lot of extras.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Like there wasn't a cheat.
yeah, and you can only, which means you
and
can
as a
only do
result-
it once. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you want to battle with 10,000 people,
Plus,
that's a tall order.
plus magic, plus creatures, plus things
Mhm.
flying around, plus, you know, and
Yeah.
you have to make it exciting enough that people aren't going to lose themselves in it. So
Totally.
like your audience,
And we can like as a modern audience, we can complain about like there was just a big CGI battle and it had a bunch of stuff in it, and it was a Marvel fight, and you know
yeah,
some stuff happened, but who cares? This really was like we had not collectively seen something like this when it came out, and it's arguably still hasn't been topped. Like, what an amazing
Yeah.
feat.
like it. Well, I would say, yeah, with the certain the theming in these battles, yeah, it probably hasn't been topped. Like there's a lot of giant battles that I'd say were really good, but this one, especially Helm's Deep, like I said, Helm's Deep is how that whole sequence plays out is absolutely phenomenal, and a lot of it has
Yeah.
to do with the music.
100%.
I would say, oh man, I'd say almost half of it is the music, and I put it that high because
Mhm.
the music puts you in the mindset. For me anyway, music puts me in the mindset, and it kept getting worse. And I mean, not the music
Mhm.
getting worse, but it kept getting more dire. It kept getting more dire. The sharp notes kept hitting, and then all of a sudden, and everybody knows the sequence when the light shows off in the distance, and you're like,
Hell yeah.
all of a sudden, everything the music. Somebody just like turned the whole music around, like
Yeah.
literally just turned the sheets around and said, "Okay, now we're going back up." And I was like,
Yeah.
You
get that full statement of the Rohan
Yeah.
theme.
That's why I said the
goosebumps.
Rohan theme, man. It is one of the most triumphant things, like pieces of music that I've heard. Like, yeah, it's in my top maybe 5 of things that consistently make me tear up. Yeah, it's one of the things that it's one of the pieces of music that consistently make me tear up. So I consider that a win.
Absolutely.
Take your W, guys. Take your W.
There's a half dozen of those moments where it's just like everything comes together into like, you know, these perfect movie moments.
Yeah.
It's what's crazy is just like, oh, we're talking about how incredible that soundtrack is during this Charge of the Rohirrim. It's not even the best Charge of the Rohirrim.
No, it's not. It's not. You heard me say death earlier.
I know.
Death! Which is another turn of the whole franchise. It's amazing. Yes.
Yeah, spectacular moment.
Yeah.
And I have not even mentioned that 100% of the time, my wife does cry when at Theoden's death.
Oh yeah, I remember us talking
Yeah.
about this literally years ago, probably almost 8 to
Yep.
10 years ago. We were talking about
Still
this,
true.
and it's still I don't doubt that. And like I said, I believe half of that is the music's fault. Good job on you,
Oh,
music.
yeah.
Take your win. Take your W, Howard. You still. This is still good. It still
it's
works.
exceedingly good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Book or film always gets her.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Let me tell you, that makes that's hard when you're trying to put your wife to bed and you're like, okay, we got to carve out time for Theoden's death because you will be crying during it. And she's just like, yeah,
Yeah. That's correct.
that is correct. Yeah, I will be crying.
Okay. I am going to transition. We're gonna cut it here a little bit because music is great. We know this. Yes.
Mwah.
Okay. Now the question, and this is going to be the question / we're gonna just talk geek out about like famous quotes and funny stuff like actually in the movies and stuff. Who is your favorite character?
I don't know.
Don't give me that. You know the assignment.
You wrote it down, and I've been trying to think of it in the background. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I know, and this is, and I just want to say out to like the masses, this is really hard for Adam because Adam likes to think about
Really hard.
things, and he's not good on the spot because he's like, no, I want to be a complete, like I want to have my thoughts complete and everything like that, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a hard
like
one.
I can
you.
stand by my opinion
Yeah,
tomorrow.
you want
and
to
I
be able
don't
to
know
do
if
it,
I can.
and I love the fact that it's like, nah, man, you with all your knowledge and all your talk and all this love that you have for this franchise, this story, this everything, and you're saying that you don't have a favorite character that you could see yourself in or what have you?
What can I say? Too much Longbottom leaf. My love of the halfling's leaf has clearly slowed.
So you would be a hobbit then.
Look, I think the answer has
I'm gonna pull a TMZ on you. So you're gonna be a hobbit then, huh? Which hobbit are you?
It's probably got to be Sam.
Okay, I was gonna say, is it Sam or Sam's wife?
Rosie ain't in this story. She's barely in it. And like, hey, I know that people are like, oh, there's a queer reading of The Lord of the Rings where it's just like, oh, are Sam and Frodo actually a thing? On the page, like, it's like, I'm not convinced a straight reading is possible. These guys are so... It's not a sexual relationship, but they are in love.
Well, here's the thing.
100%.
What is the problem with that?
Like, no. No one's saying anything about a problem.
No. What is the problem? Like, people act like two, like, guys, like us, for example, can't love each other in that way. Can't, like, cry on each other's shoulders. Can't be like... man, I love you, man. We're probably about to die. I love you, man. I would not be anywhere here else, like anywhere with anybody else but you. Because that's literally what happened, by the way. But it's one of the most emotional parts of the story, and they sell it because that's how they are. They sell the friendship, the deep friendship, the entire time. That's what I like.
Absolutely do. I'm arguing that they are like beyond.
Oh yeah,
friends.
yeah. It's like, oh man. Yeah, they're having.
I'm not
sex
saying
while Gollum's
that
not
they're
looking.
horny for each other, but like they're romantically involved. Like, here's the thing: at the end of the books, Frodo's just like, Sam, I'm going to go to the Grey Havens and I'm going to sail across the seas because you can't be married to me and Rosie at the same time. And like. That's basically text. I'm not really paraphrasing that much. It's like they're so in love with each other. They're constantly holding hands. They're constantly doing, like, I don't know. I understand the relationship that Tolkien was writing for, and I don't think he was intending it as queer. But like, it's extremely on the page.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I've talked, I think, about the book The Haunting of Hill House, where they're just like, oh, like if you squint at it, like you could see that these characters might be lesbians, and it's just like, I don't know how you could read it any other way. Like they're very clearly romantically obsessed with each other.
Well, I also think I've always read that as like that very, very close relationship of two people that have been in war together and survived.
Absolutely.
You would be that close to somebody like that who like literally went through hell together.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he was trying to get at, which ends up being a thing if you talk to any type of veteran who made it through with people.
Totally.
It's like, yeah, that's my brother. That's my fam. That is my blood, even though that we're not blood. We grew up in the womb together type situation. Yeah, I'm going to hold hands with them because I literally carried them. Like, we carried each other through shit. So I would see that as not a problem at all. Like, I actually think that is very healthy for, especially for men, to be that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, yes, of course. How many times have I told you, mister, that I love you?
I know. I love you too.
Yeah, I'm not.
We're very comfortable expressing that to each other, which I am a fan.
I think more guys need to say that and be it okay. It's like, yeah, I love this guy. Like it doesn't always have to go. If it is that, sure, it is that. But this is not that. Like between me and you, and yet I still am way more like, yeah, I'm gonna say that. And that's how I felt with Frodo and Sam. It's like I
don't think I could fit it into the scope of the show, but like I feel like I could do a podcast length discussion on like the different types of love that there are and the way that our language fails to communicate that by just having
I have had
the one word for it.
Man, I've had multiple discussions with people over the years for that. Like
totally.
Like, in certain Greek and stuff like that. And
my wife is currently listening to this podcast, and she is like possessed. Her eyes have rolled back into her skull, and she's listing off all of the like philia.
Oh, agape.
Agape. Yeah. Oh, she gonna be talking about agape.
I told you. I know this, man. I love language too. So. I love. I swear, if I had the time, I would learn as many languages as I could, as I would try to.
Oh yeah, I love.
Because I do want to be that one person that if I end up getting rich, I want to travel. I want to go all over the place because that was one of my things that I wanted to do, for a long time and film it. I wanted to make. I love travel shows, and I wanted to make my own travel show when I was a kid. And I still think that's, a thing. So I love, but circling back to that thingy is that relationship. And, oh, man, you said Sam, because that's my favorite. Because I think he's the real... now, obviously, I don't...
more than that. Yeah. I feel like, weirdly, Sam almost gets too much credit, because people will be like... He's the hero of the thing, and Frodo ain't even do shit. It's like, no, actually, Frodo is a wonderful character.
Because I was about to say that. I was 100% about to say that. What you were saying is a lot of people do say that. It's like, yeah, Sam is the real hero. I'm like, Sam is a real hero. So is Frodo, type thing. They are literally a package deal to the point that the mission wouldn't have been a success if they both weren't together the entire time. That's kind of the base of it type thing, because they both hold each other up in certain ways.
Totally. Yeah. When in the Tower of Cirith Ungol, when Frodo has been stabbed by Shelob, and but Sam thinks that Frodo is dead. He like resolves to go on by himself. Gets like 10 feet away, and he's like, no, I gotta go rescue Frodo. Yeah. Like, he can't do it. He's just like, well, even if it's a suicide mission and I just do nothing but like hold on to his body before we're inevitably killed, like I cannot be separated from him. I cannot be separated from him.
And I think it's a lot of that is I cannot be alone. like I've always had him to lean on.
It's really Frodo.
Yeah.
It's not anything other than that. Like
Yeah.
it's just he loves Frodo and he needs Frodo.
Yeah. Yeah, but I always thought that was cool because that made the ending, like the very end like that much more painful and that much more sad and that much more emotional. Like just the goodbyes of that whole thing is just like, oh man, you don't have to do this. Like you don't have to do this. Like when
I know.
And like I said, I think that's masterful how it all comes down to the four hobbits saying goodbye. And that's when you're like, yeah, I'm going to do a man cry here. When especially like when you know, I'm going to say like I think it was Pippin. Was it Pippin who hugged Frodo and he was just looking kind of off in the distance with tears in his eyes? I was like, don't do this. Don't do this.
They just look like such wrecks.
And I was like, you do not have
movie.
to do this. And then when like Sam obviously was the last one, he just started bawling. He's like, I want to go with you. I don't want you to go. And he's like, and it's funny because Frodo was I love the fact that Frodo was at peace that entire time, too. He was like,
right.
And I also really love the fact that he didn't go by himself. Bilbo went with him. And Bilbo was like, I am too old for this shit.
Well, they don't make it clear in the movie, but basically that journey across the water, that is an invitation that is open to all ring bearers. So that's why Gandalf is on the boat. That's why Bilbo is on the boat. But Sam also gets that invitation. And so like the story ends and we don't know what happens afterwards, but like to me, you know, when Sam is ready, he too
will go
journeys across the water. And gets to leave his side piece behind. Sorry, Rosie Cotton. And go be with his one true love.
Yeah, but I mean, like that. That's really cool. But yeah, if you're gonna say Sam, I was gonna say Sam too. Sam is my favorite. Sam.
It's really difficult, and honestly, the thing that pushes it over the edge is that his voice is very fun to do. It's very.
I don't believe you. I mean, as a great character, my favorite character, because I'm always really interested in the villains, obviously. So it, like I said, I do like royalty and how that is handled, in certain stories and stuff like that. And this one, it's like really interesting because there's like all different types. And I do like what's his name? You said his name before. John Noble's character, the bat, one of the
Denethor.
Yeah, I love his character because
he's wonderful.
It is one of the most spiteful, like just over it characters. And like you said, there is some sense of sympathy to him because there's a reason why he's like that. But at the same time, there is no reason that you should just like condemn your son who does nothing but try to do good for you, and just like so selfish. So I don't care about anybody below me. I don't care about the citizens. He's like, flee for your lives. I was like, man, shut up. And I'm glad he got whacked. like what's his name? Gandalf just whacks him in the face. He's like, shut up.
Yeah. It is a real good
moment.
Oh,
I love saying that all the time. Like, flee for your life.
Flee for your lives.
And I was like, okay. I love that character, but I do also really enjoy what's his name? Gimli. Not gonna lie.
Sure.
I mean, obviously Sam is my MVP, but Gimli, I always loved him because it was all fun and games and he was kind of a joke. And then you get to the Mines of Moria and he's like, no. What the hell happened
Mines of Moria
here?
Is such a good sequence. And then also like realizing that, oh, we're in the tomb of Balin. Balin was one of the 13
Yeah.
dwarves. Like, he was part of the Hobbit.
Yeah.
And like, oh, there's like real connection and like tragedy here. Yeah, all that stuff. That's one of those situations where like those connections like deepen
Yeah.
the whole experience for me.
Yeah. Like,
Um,
obviously, there's like the whole a mine. A mine, they say.
mine.
A mine.
John Rhys Davis is so delightful in that he's having so much fun, and he also voices Treebeard, and
Yeah.
Treebeard is also so much fun.
Like, Treebeard was one of my favorite characters when I
Mhm.
watched it, because I was like, I love this character that is super wise and super
Yeah.
knowledgeable, but he's like a tree. They act like trees. It's like, we're just gonna sit. We're gonna talk. He's like, "Are you done talking? We haven't even decided who's gonna talk first, or something like that."
Yeah, I love book Treebeard being just like, we're going up to the hill. Such a hasty word for something with so much history.
Yeah.
He's just like, like kind of contemptuous of the English language. He's just like, not giving it its proper due.
Yeah. Oh well.
That's not a hill. That's a hill.
Yeah. But I always found that character really funny too. Just the idea of like living trees that are just like, I've seen it all, and
yeah,
I haven't seen you. What is your name, little dwarf? Or little orc. Yeah, he was like, you're a little orc.
Yeah, so much fun. And I love John Rhys Davies' performance as Treebeard, because the character is described as having like a musical quality to his voice, and they do like some post-process treatment, which like is really wonderful and like really captures the spirit of that. So good.
Yeah, a lot of the choices, I think they did like it was crazy how many choices they made in this this film franchise that were correct. The correct
Absolutely
answer. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the amount of people that cared about not only the film but also the material. Like, the material is like super special to so many people, and it's actually timeless, which is crazy. So it's just like, no, this is a pure fantasy story. Like, some would call it high fantasy. So it's like, I call it high. Okay. How I describe high fantasy is something like the Lord of the Rings, where it's not Harry Potter fantasy, where it's like spells, stuff like that, shooting out of like actual wands and stuff like that, which is another cool fantasy thing. But this is high fantasy where everything is kind of broken down a lot more detailed, and there's a lot more rules to the world that you would like, you would follow, where you can't just like how we described beforehand, like how I forget what book series it was, but how magic was, where it's like, yeah, I could do this spell, but that is taking away resources from somewhere else to do it, and then that causes certain things to happen. Like, everything it's more of like an alchemic kind
of an equivalent exchange thing that you're describing.
Yeah. And I would say that's more into like the high fantasy stuff, where nothing is as simple as just casting a spell and just changing things. It's way more, I guess, I hate using this word grounded, but it's way more, I guess, grounded in a way.
So grounded to me, I think, is the right word. But like, the reason why it feels more grounded is because it feels esoteric and mysterious. Like, there's clearly rules that are involved, but almost no one knows what those rules are, because there's 7 wizards that have ever existed, and only 2 of them are major players in this. And then other magic that happens is either not really magic, or it's magic adjacent, or it's like you're not quite sure. Like, there's a moment where Frodo is just like, hey, Galadriel, what's up with your elf magic? And she's just like, I don't know about calling it magic, but like, if that's what you want to call it, sure. Anyways, here's my magic mirror.
Yeah.
Um,
But I also, well,
But, like-
I also think that to add to that, I think because I was just thinking about this, I think another reason why it's grounded is because there are consequences, like actual
Yeah.
real consequences, where people can still die, like just getting shot with an arrow. Like you just don't
Totally.
just because you have magic or something doesn't mean you can automatically cast cast a shield in front of you all the time or something like that. and-
yeah. It's not The Witcher, where it's like magic users are trained and used for war.
yeah.
Like, it's not like it's that level of control.
That's
By
yeah.
and large, war is still fought by people and swords.
Yeah.
And then when something outside of that is introduced, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh shit, there's an Oliphant. Oh no, there's ring wraiths on fucking dragons?
Oh no,
don't even
the
know what's going
Balrog.
Balrog is a
Yeah.
real big deal.
Oh no, a Balrog, which is literally like I don't think we can get past this. Yeah, and not saying that like that kind of like storytelling or world building isn't cool, because I love, like, Witcher is definitely straight up Elric stuff, which is really cool.
Mhm,
I love that kind of world building, but this is I would equate that to more urban fantasy, and this
Mm.
one to more high fantasy. But that's, like I said, that's my opinion. That's why I would say that. So
I see where you're coming from. I'm not interested in arguing the taxonomy. But
yeah, I should have known.
there's
Why
definitely
not? It's all right. It's all right. You're right.
It's
You're
fine.
absolutely right.
Yeah, there's a groundedness to it, which I really like. Again, it's not realistic. It's not trying to be realistic, but like the stakes are realistic. They're never fighting a beam of light in the sky,
Mhm. Yeah.
They're fighting dudes.
Yeah.
And the threat is that someone's gonna stab me,
Yeah.
which would be bad.
Yeah. Well, also stab me, and I'm not gonna be able to recover from this, which is why
Yeah.
things like
I
have
might get
magic poison or something like that what'll burn you from the inside or something, but you still get stabbed.
Yeah, I might get stabbed and then slowly get pulled into the wraith world, which would not be great.
Yeah. But it's like an added layer of, oh, this is bad, oh, this is bad, which usually means that magic is a big deal when somebody's wielding it.
Yeah.
Type thing, which is always really cool. But I just like that. Yeah, but yeah, the Lord of the Rings, man. Potatoes.
Lord of the Rings. One other thing that I really want to just like give a shout out to. This is a movie this is a book that was written in its time, and as a result, it's not fraught in its racial politics. There just ain't black people around.
Yeah.
And it's not against women, there just ain't many women around. So, there's valid complaints to be had from those angles. However, The Lord of the Rings has maybe the densest concentration of great male role models in fiction. Like, between Theoden and Gandalf and Sam and Aragorn, like, absolutely Aragorn, like, there are so many people who I could like ask myself, just like, what would Aragorn do in this situation? And that could be like a moral compass that I ascribe to. Like, there are so many just like, I don't know. There's an excellent article written about how, Aragorn is the antithesis of toxic masculinity.
Absolutely.
And I totally agree with
it's
that
absolutely
perspective.
true.
When he is brought into the city and is kind of claiming his birthright, he doesn't announce himself with a big fanfare. He goes into the houses of healing and he helps people who no one else could help. He has special knowledge, that he is able to use to help counteract the effects of fighting ring wraiths. Because this isn't a thing in the movie. In the books, fighting ring wraiths kills you.
Yeah.
Like it poisons you and
Yeah.
you will die. It doesn't matter if they kill you.
You're gonna
like,
die
just
eventually.
engaging with
Yeah.
them. Yeah. Weapons die against ring
Yeah.
wraiths. You stab a ring wraith, the sword crumbles.
Yeah.
Like they're extremely metal.
Yeah.
But the point is that Aragorn has this old wives' tale knowledge, from being a ranger, where he is dealing with things. He just has this area of expertise that no one else has, and he's able to help. And then suddenly the rumor catches fire. It's just like, oh, the hands of a king are the hands of a healer. And that is like how he is known. That's how people know that the king has returned.
Yeah.
Is the hands of a healer. And like, what a like weirdly profound thing for this captain of war to be recognized for, right? Like, he isn't recognized for his prowess in battle, and he isn't recognized for the crown on his head. He's recognized because he can and does help.
Yeah.
There's so many things about this that are like that, like those small details or these small twists of expectation that like have a mythological or poetic beauty to them, that I just love.
Well, it's very much what these stories should be about. It's about our like role models that we should look up to, like, the original idea of like Superman, for example. Like, this is why a lot of these modern day depictions of Superman don't really work, is because like, who would want to look up to this guy? Like,
absolutely.
And but the original idea is, no, it's a guy for the people, that he is just good for goodness sake type situation. He wants to help because he just wants to. And I feel like the new cartoon for Superman, for example, it's like that. He just wants to help. He just feels, he's like, this is how I was raised. This is what I want to do. This is actually what I want to do. And
he has the ability to help, and therefore
he wants to help.
He has to
he
help.
feels like he has to. I have an obligation to help.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's become a cliche to the point where I feel like people lose the meaning of the words. But with great power comes great responsibility, and I feel that personally. Like, if I'm in a position where I can help someone, I have a responsibility to help someone.
Absolutely, 100% for me too. 100% for me.
What would Spider-Man do is a really great moral compass.
Because that's another one. Like, he just wants to help because he feels he has to. I have this power, therefore I should be helping. I should be doing something. And obviously that comes from like you said, like Superman, that comes from his parents, just down home, hardworking farm people from Kansas who just, they're the same way. I just want to help, which is why the modern version of Superman didn't work, because the parents were kind of weird. It is like, this doesn't feel right.
The live action Man of Steel
stuff. It's like, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah, agreed.
But that's why. It's not because of all the shenanigans that happened with Martha and all that. No. Like, a lot of the, pathos wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that's what made it bad, in my opinion.
I mean, I feel like it's almost becoming a catchphrase of mine because I've said it so often, but like, Superman's true power is his fundamental decency.
Yeah.
Like, that is what makes him, like, he's powerful, right? But what makes him a superhero is his goodness.
Yes. And every true, not true, but because I hate saying true fan, but every huge fan of Superman who has been following him and wants to see him on the screen done right will say the exact same thing. They're like, yes, we 100% agree with you. We want to see Boy Scout Superman. That is the point.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but that's the point.
That does not get old to me.
Because, that should be what we like. That shouldn't be shamed. Like, we act like, no, that's not realistic. No, we need that. Because that's what we all want anyway. So why is it bad that we have an example right here? And I think Aragorn is the same way. We have an example right here. That shouldn't be shamed, that he's just good, that he wants to be that, but he can also kick ass. That is the epitome, like they said, that's the epitome of like what a lot of men want to be. They want to be the big strong guy, but at the same time, they want to have gentle hands. They want to be sensitive. They want to be holding the cat and taking the picture with the fam. Like, you know,
Cats are good.
I
You
don't
should want to
necessarily
hold
like
the
cats,
cat.
but you know what I mean. So, yes, potatoes. I'm going to go back to potatoes.
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 They're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Mow naked hose. Boiler. Mow naked hose. But yeah, it's like that's like Lord of the Rings is special, and like I said, I'm coming from it from a thing that I don't have a lot of history, like as a child and stuff like that. I knew about it, but the most I had read was the Hobbit, and I actually saw the cartoon Hobbit first, and I was like, yeah, Lord of the Rings is cool, but I did, yeah, obviously I did, because what, I don't know who, like what black person didn't think that. As I got older, it's like, where are all the black people? There's like none here. But at the same time,
I know.
But here's the thing: I have enough like self-awareness to be like, most of this sounds Nordic anyway, so like I'm not gonna like bemoan. How could you, Tolkien? How could you? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna be that guy. Would I like to see
in
more?
The books.
Sure, but I also, it's not about that, which I do like the fact that he didn't make it about that. There's like no necessarily like any type of racial situation in the books. I mean, or as far as I know, in like the movies anyway, where people
in the books, like there's nothing truly problematic. He does use the word swarthy more than I would like, but there's a certain amount of like, it was in the time, and I don't think that that's what he was trying to communicate. I think that he is ultimately very inclusive in his views, but it's still kind of not great.
Yeah, well,
and that just has to be true.
Yeah, and I also know, I am also very aware too that like in the movies, like the only actual like dark-skinned people are the bad guys, and that I did notice that, and I was like, that doesn't feel exactly great.
No.
And the fact that at least they aren't necessarily stupid, but a lot of this is like, a lot of them tend to be a little bumbling, and that doesn't feel very good.
And like, to be clear, like in the books, they're treated like other cultures.
Yeah.
They're just treated as other cultures that have basically already lost, right?
Yeah.
They've already lost the war and been assimilated into the greater army. And it doesn't suck, or it does kind of suck, but like it's not presented as a like inherent thing, which is brilliantly illustrated through another all-time monologue by Faramir, talking about, you look at him and you wonder if he truly was evil at heart, to go so far from home only to die here. What threats or lies brought him to this sorry point, and would he not have rather stayed at home in peace? And it's like, if that doesn't touch your heart, like, I don't know what to tell you.
Well,
like,
I mean, I think the entirety of the Lord of the Rings, like, as much as smoltzy as a lot of people want to say it is and whatnot, and I am 100% for saying shut up to those people, it is about hope. It is about hope for peace for everyone, not just the good guys, but everyone, to just say, okay, enough is enough. We're done.
Absolutely.
Are you done? Are we done? Okay. Because that's how I viewed it anyway. Like with my worldview anyway, I'm 100% like about the entirety, and which is why I like the Lord of the Rings as much as I do, even though I have no deep history with it. I'm like, when I watched it, I was like, this is something that's important. Like, this is important
Yeah.
for everyone to hear. Like, this is why a lot of people love it. Like, of all different situations, like, okay, like race, like, culture, religion, all this kind of stuff, it is wrapped up in like a lot of people. A lot of people, there's a genuine good message that comes with all of this, which is, I don't want to say that's rare, but that is definitely something special that needs to be cherished in this, especially in this day and age.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's it's something, and like I said, I have it. I have all three of them, and me and my wife, we still have yet to see all three of them. Together. We still need to do that.
Oh wow!
Because there is also the famous. Now that we're kind of winding down, I'm going to tell a really quick story that's also very embarrassing for me. So all the masks can hear me cringe a little bit. But when I got together with my wife, one of the first dates we had, I think it was the first date we had. I happened to bring over the first Lord of the Rings because I rented it. And I showed up at her place unannounced, because obviously I liked her and everything like that. And I showed up with the rented movie because it was on DVD, and I rented it. And I was like, "Hey, I just decided to come over, and I brought the Lord of the Rings. I thought we could watch together. I thought you might like it. Yeah." And then famously, she's like, "Oh, okay," and she shut the door, and she's like, she put on, like, she told me this obviously later, but she's like, I was completely unprepared because he showed up at my house without even calling, so I had to put on deodorant, I had to put on a shirt, I had to put on a bra, I had to do all this kind of stuff, and I was like, and then she told me that, and I was like, wow, now I feel like even more of an idiot. Thank you very much. I was an idiot. Thank you.
Oh boy.
And we watched half of it.
There's nothing cool about young romance. It's all incredibly dorky and
sweaty. Oh, I got him for days. Because I was that guy. But at the same time, I had to, like, dump all of my game into one, one shot. It's like literally having so much game, but it's like I only have one bullet. So I have to, like, literally just inscribe all of that game onto one bullet and just take my shot. As they say, shoot your shot. So
shoot your shot.
So Lord of the Rings was
my first date with my wife was supposed to be the Chronicles of Narnia, but it left theaters the day that we went to go see it. So I had to pivot, and I was like, well, Peter Jackson's King Kong is here. Should we watch that? And it was 4 hours long, and it had the bug scene.
The bug scene.
That was not great. It was not great.
So, will you marry me?
And then I asked her if she wanted to go date me, and she said yes for some reason. So God
That's really
help
funny.
Me. So you can date that.
Yeah. Awesome. Excellent. Okay. And with that is our Lord of the Rings talk, at least for right now, because of course.
I want to say that Corey was worried that this episode would be too short.
Oh no, I knew it would go on forever. I knew
Correct.
If I gave him no leash, he would just go and run around in the snow all day and be like, whoa, and run around and roll around and yahoo. So yeah, but hey man, it was good. I knew this was gonna be fun because I knew this was gonna be good. So before we get to the end, I think it's about that time.
Yeah.
What's gonna be next?
So, the two topics that I would like you to pick from are fictional bands, which is to say everything from Powerline to Four Town to Chip Skylark.
Oh man.
Just talking about fictional bands and why we both love them. Like, they're so fun. Or great role models in fiction, which we've already touched on some today. But there's a lot of people.
I'm assuming it's going to be kind
of
a little bit more directed. These are both kind of a little bit more directed towards me, like we usually do. So,
always.
Oh man, what's the first one again?
Fictional bands.
Because I do love music. But I also don't necessarily like musicals. But that's also not true, because my tastes have changed a little bit. So, but I do want to talk about role models though, because that's really cool and that's really interesting. Because then I can go all craziness with like stuff in comics and
Hell
the
yeah.
people that like when I'm doing my own comics that I kind of take inspiration from and stuff. Oh man. I'm dead serious. I want to talk about music, but I also want to talk about that. I think I'm gonna go with music. I think I'm gonna go with the music one.
All right.
Because
we'll be talking about fake bands.
Yeah, fake bands. And I'm assuming all types of fake bands. So
all types of fake bands.
All types of fake like music artists and stuff like that, and in like movies and TV shows and stuff.
Yep. We are talking about fictional bands that exist within the diegesis of the film. So not just musicals where, there's someone on a piano, but like, we are Sex Bomb! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Or my name is Protozoa.
Protozoa?
Zoom, zoom, zoom.
Boom, boom, boom. Make my heart go zoom, zoom.
My supernova girl. Okay, that's what we're doing.
You think I ain't no Protozoa?
I have no idea. I have no idea, man.
Xenon Girl, this is a whole other episode.
Okay.
Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century, was my first bad movie love, where every time it came up on Disney Channel, I would watch it, and my mom would be like, I think you like this movie, and I'm like, no, that's not it, but I am fascinated. I can't stop watching.
That means you like it, though.
Why.
That means you like it.
No, it's a different feeling.
No, it's...
So... I didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
Now I can articulate it, but at 11 years old or whatever, it was very perplexing.
Yeah, it was one of the, I'm gonna say real quick, it was one of those movies where I said this would be better as an animated series, and I could make it. I'm dead serious. I still think that to this day. This could be better as as an animated series.
It would be difficult for it to be worse as an animated series.
I think they could do a lot better with it. It wouldn't be the 21st century because that would make absolutely no sense. But yeah, we could work with it. Disney, you will never give me the rights to anything, especially after I saw like that horrid display that you called Girl versus Monster, where I thought it was one thing and it ended up just being a...
What the
don't
fuck
even
is Girl versus
don't even worry
Monster?
about it. Don't even worry about it.
I won't.
Yeah, it made me upset, but because I thought it was gonna be one thing and it ended up being something else, and I was like, how dare I have faith in Disney's like primetime programming for kids? How dare I?
How dare you?
Anyway, hey guys, if you have questions,
let us wrap it up.
Do you want to take it out because you do it better than I do?
I'll take it out. If you've enjoyed the show, you can contact us at halftonetakes@gmail.com to drop any questions, comments, or suggestions for the topic of an episode.
Yeah.
You can also visit us on our Discord. We've got a Discord now. Come swing by, say hello. We are always available to chat about the show, about whatever. If you've enjoyed listening, please give us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, or wherever else podcasts are rated. However, word of mouth is the only way that we grow. So if you like the show, please tell a friend.
Yes.
I have been Adam Bucherri. I am an animator and game designer. You can find my tabletop games on bucherri.itch.io. Corey Revis, who the fuck are you?
Well, before that, you forgot to mention that we also have an Instagram. So go check out.
We do have an Instagram.
Go check out our Instagram. It's Halftone Takes on Instagram. I post stuff all the time on that. And
Corey makes delightful little doodles for episodes,
Yes.
and they charm the pants off me.
yes, and I hope they charm the
always
pants
thrilled
off
to
of
see a new
you.
one.
I hope you are walking around pantsless because of me. So
If you're wearing pants,
yeah.
not for long.
So, I have also been Corey Revis, illustrator and comic creator. You can find me on Instagram at EARTHUR_ONE. That's Earther1. And I have a comic on Webtoons called Dawn of Time. You should check it out. It's cool. It's about Dawn. She is the first Mother Time. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. The Father Time has gone missing, and now his daughter has to step into the void.
Yeah. Quite literally. Punching things. She's punchy.
Yeah. She do punch.
It's cool. So yeah. Buddy, I love that we had this talk. It's good to see that your extensive nerdiness started to come out, and you're like, let me tell you.
It was like I was on the operating table on the scene from John Carpenter's The Thing where they're about to defibrillate him, and I'm just like twitching violently as like little tendrils of dork.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about like the opening of the stomach. Ah!
Exactly that.
He's got my arms.
But then it's just like,
yeah,
that's all of the nerdiness, like just like involuntarily.
Adam holds back a lot.
Erupting.
He is the more reserved one, obviously. If you haven't noticed through all the episodes that we've done, he's way more. He's the more reserved one. He is the straight guy in our buddy cop film. But
probably true, which is weird,
yeah.
All things considered.
Yeah, but occasionally I can poke the right holes in him, and then all of a sudden, like, it just goes, and all that stuff comes out, and it's just like, oh, this smells interesting.
Great.
This smells like Bombadil.
Weird how good it smells. It does smell like Bombadil.
I gotcha.
Bye.
I gotcha.
Goodbye.
Got him. The desolation of Smaug. The way is shut. We could just do quotes from the Lord of the Rings, to be honest. I wonder if that would be actually funny. Because that's my favorite. That's probably one of my favorite lines in the movie is, the way is shut. It was made by those who are dead. And the dead keep it. The way is shut, motherfucker.
It's Bombadil time!
Bombadil time!